Since Sultan Tuğrul had no son to succeed him, under the influence of the mother of Suleiman, the son of Çağrı, he declared Abul Qasim Suleiman as his heir before his death, and willed that he should be seated on the Seljuk throne after me. After the Sultan's death, Vizier Kundurë, who was besieging Kurtulmuş at the Girdkuh fortress, immediately returned to the capital Rai to fulfill the Sultan's will. In order to gain the support of the military, he distributed a large amount of gold and valuable cloth from the state treasury among them. Thus, after obtaining the approval of all military members, Kundurë brought Suleiman, who was in Isfahan at the time, to Rai and declared him as Sultan, having the Friday sermon read in his name. Meanwhile, he sent a threatening letter to Alp Arslan, who was in Khorasan. However, when the news spread across the country, Alp Arslan and Musa İnanç Bey, who were already claiming the throne, declared that they did not recognize Suleiman's sultanate and began to act. At the same time, Erbasan, said to be from the Seljuk family, along with Emir Yagisyan and Hacib Erdem, went to Kazvin and began reading the khutbah in Alp Arslan's name as Sultan. According to one account, Kurtulmuş, who was in the Girdkuh fortress, marched to Rai with a large army of Turkmen, said to be either 50 or 90,000 in number in the sources, and captured the city, having the khutbah read in his name as Sultan. In response, Vizier Kundurë sent Emir İnanç Bey with a small force against him, but İnanç Bey was defeated and captured. Upon this, while Kurtulmuş was absent from the city, Kundurë quickly returned to Rai and took defensive measures in the fortress. He also sent a private messenger to inform Alp Arslan of the situation and had Suleiman deposed, ordering the khutbah to be read in Alp Arslan's name. Meanwhile, Kurtulmuş had managed to defeat Emir Erdem, one of Alp Arslan's loyal Hacibs. Later, he went to the Turkmen tribes and obtained large-scale military support from them. At the same time, Alp Arslan eliminated the rebellious ruler of Hutalan and Musa İnanç Bey, who had also claimed the throne, by defeating and capturing them. After securing the eastern regions of the country, Alp Arslan moved with a large army from Nishapur toward Rai. In response, Kurtulmuş lifted the siege of Rai and started moving to meet Alp Arslan. Meanwhile, when Alp Arslan reached Damgan, he sent a letter to Kurtulmuş asking him to give up his claim to the throne, but he could not convince him. Soon, the two armies fought in the valley of Dihai Samek. To stop Alp Arslan's forces from moving freely, Kurtulmuş flooded the valley and turned it into mud and swamps. Despite having fewer soldiers, Alp Arslan attacked quickly with his experienced emirs Kul Sarık, Savtekin, Sungursa, and Buldaci. He defeated Kurtulmuş completely and captured his brother Resul Tekin and his eldest son. Kurtulmuş, forced to take shelter in Girdkuh fortress, saw his army completely scattered. Sometime later, trying to escape the fortress to avoid capture, Kurtulmuş fell from his horse, was seriously injured, and soon died from blood loss. His body was found by Alp Arslan's soldiers and buried next to Sultan Tuğrul's tomb in Rai. Alp Arslan was very sad about his death and mourned for days. After defeating all his rivals with great courage and determination, Alp Arslan came to the capital Rai. There, in the royal palace built by Tuğrul Bey, he was crowned as the Seljuk Sultan in a magnificent ceremony and minted coins in his name. After the ceremony, in a grand feast worth 2 million miskals arranged by Alp Arslan on the table of his uncle Sultan Tuğrul, he gave robes and rewards to the military and civil officials of the state and the Turkmen beys. Later, Alp Arslan sent Sayyida Hatun, the wife of Tuğrul Bey and daughter of the Caliph, to Baghdad with Aytekin, who was appointed the military governor of Baghdad. Caliph Qaim b Emrilla held a great ceremony in Baghdad for Alp Arslan's ascension to the throne. He approved his sultanate, had the Friday sermon read in his name, and sent a special envoy with a sword, robe, banner, and many valuable gifts for Alp Arslan to wear with many titles. Because of the throne dispute, Alp Arslan initially kept Vizier Kunduri, who had served under Tugrul Bey, in his position. Later, he dismissed Kunduri and appointed his own vizier, Nizam al-Mulk, who had served him during his time as Malik, Prince of Khorasan. Soon after, Alp Arslan sent Kunduri to Mervurud in Khorasan and had him imprisoned. After a while, he, Kunduri, was killed. After Sultan Alp Arslan established order in the government, he continued the Anatolian campaigns started during Sultan Tugrul's time, according to the state's conquest plans. In 1064, he set out and reached Azerbaijan from Seyid. When he arrived at the city of Marand, northeast of Lake Urmia, many Turkmen forces joined his army. There, the Emir Tuktekin, who regularly raided Anatolia, came to him and gave information about his raids and the main roads leading to Anatolia. Besides Tuktekin, Yakuti, the Sultan's brother who had managed the Seljuk military operations in Anatolia since Sultan Tugrul's time, and the previously mentioned Seljuk emirs and Turkmen beys also joined him. Soon after, Alp Arslan reached Nakhchivan. He made his army cross the Aras River using a bridge made of boats and divided his army into two groups. With the first group, which he led personally, he advanced and accepted the offer of the Armenian prince Davidoglu Gheorghe, who tried to form a principality by making Lori his capital, to become a Seljuk vassal by paying an annual tax. Then the Sultan entered the territory of Georgia, passed through Kangarni, Kartli, and Javaket, and advanced to the northern parts of Georgia. While he was occupying the mountainous Trialeti region in the Kura River direction, the vanguard of his army had already reached Kveliskuri on the Kura River's Czech branch in the west. Sultan Alp Arslan passed over Shavshat in a wide arc, moved south, and reached the town of Panaskirt on the river of the same name. Later, he also captured the Aksahir area between Kartli and Kars. After fierce fighting, he successfully captured the town of Alaverdi, located on the bank of the Borhala River, defended by Georgian forces. Many spoils and prisoners were taken from the city. At that time, the Seljuk forces were about to capture Bagrat IV, the Georgian prince, but he fled to the Caucasus Mountains and barely escaped. However, he sent a delegation to the Sultan, declaring his obedience and submission, and asked for peace on the condition of paying an annual tax to the Seljuk state. Alp Arslan accepted this offer, stopped his advance, and returned to the Aras River basin. During this campaign, the Sultan sent the rich spoils taken to the capital, Rey. Meanwhile, the Sultan's son, Melik Shah, accompanied by Yakuti, Vizier Nizam al-Mulk, and the governor of Khorasan, Muhammad bin Mansur, advanced toward the Aras River with the Seljuk forces under his command. After a fierce siege, they captured Anberd, defended by Byzantine forces. Soon after, they also conquered the castles of Surmeli and Hagios Georgios in the same way. Then the Sultan besieged a city recorded in sources as Meryemnishin in Persian spelling. This holy and famous city, protected by strong walls, was home to many Christian clergy. After days of fighting day and night, it was captured. Very pleased with the capture of this important castle and his son's success, Sultan Alp Arslan called his son and vizier Nizam al-Mulk to his presence and congratulated them. Then, he took the forces under his son's command and marched toward the Ani castle, which was under Byzantine control. This castle in eastern Anatolia, located on the Arpacai River, was surrounded by high walls and protected by water-filled moats. It was defended by the Byzantine generals Bagrat and Grigor. The Byzantine forces came out of the castle and attacked the Seljuk siege units, but they were defeated and forced to retreat. Soon, the Seljuk forces began to besiege the castle, especially the miners, the catapults on wooden siege towers, and archers placed at strategic points fought day and night with determination. Thanks to the clever battle tactics used by Sultan Alp Arslan, they managed to capture Ani Castle, which was known as never to be captured. After the conquest, the Sultan gave the city and castle's administration to Muhammad bin Mansur and his servant Shams. He also ordered the repair of the damaged city and walls and had a mosque built there. The Christian clergy and people who surrendered were allowed to keep their lives safe by paying the jizya tax. The capture of this famous Byzantine city by Muslim Turks caused great sadness in the Christian world and great joy in the Islamic world. After this campaign, Sultan Alp Arslan left the administration of the various Byzantine lands inhabited by Armenians and Georgians to the vassal emirs who participated in the campaign. Sultan Alp Arslan sent letters of conquest to Islamic rulers and emirs, especially to the Abbasid Caliph of Baghdad, Qaim bi Emrillah, informing them about his victories and conquests against the unbelievers. Because of this news, there were great celebrations in Baghdad and other Islamic countries. The Caliph also gave the Sultan the title Father of Conquests. After the campaigns in eastern Anatolia and Georgia, Sultan Alp Arslan left Anatolia to suppress some unrest in the country and to carry out new conquests on the eastern borders. However, he did not neglect to give the necessary orders for the continuation of the conquest of Anatolia. During this time, he took action against his brother, Kerman Malik Kara Arslan Kavurt. Although Kavurt appeared loyal to the Sultan and had the khutbah read in his name, he showed some rebellious behavior. Especially while Sultan Alp Arslan was on the eastern campaign, Kavurt attacked the lands of the vassal Emir Fazlaveh of Shabankara and captured Shiraz. He was also cooperating with his brother-in-law Erbasan. Watching all these developments carefully, Alp Arslan immediately moved to Hamadan. There, he returned Shiraz to Fazlaveh, who had taken refuge with him, and took his sister Gever Hatun with him. On the other hand, Kavurt had retreated to a castle by the sea and sent his treasury to Kerman. He sent an envoy to the Sultan, asking for mercy and showing his loyalty. After this, Alp Arslan returned to Isfahan. After solving the Kavurt issue peacefully, Alp Arslan crossed the Kehun River and moved toward Mangishlak. There, he defeated the Kipchaks and Turkmens, who were robbing travelers and causing disorder in the country, and brought them under control. Then he went to Jand and visited the tomb of his ancestor Seljuk. The ruler of Jand declared his loyalty and gave valuable gifts. After that, Alp Arslan passed through Khwarezm to Merv, and then to Radkan. There, he held a big wedding for his son Melikshah and married him to Terkan Hatun, the daughter of the Karakhanid ruler Ibrahim Tamgach Khan. He also married his other son, Arslan Shah, to the daughter of the Ghaznavid ruler Ibrahim, and gave his own daughter to Ibrahim's son. Thus, a strong bond was formed between the two ruling families. After these weddings, Alp Arslan declared his carefully raised son, Melikshah, as heir. He gave him the administration of the cities Shiraz and Isfahan, and ordered that in all the khutbahs in the country, Melikshah's name should be read after his own. He also appointed his other sons as rulers, Arslan Argun to Khwarezm, Ilyas to Tocharistan, Ayaz to Balkh, Arslan Shah to Merv, Tugan Shah to Herat. He gave Mesut, the son of Ibrahim Yenal's brother Ertash, the region around Bagshur in Khorasan, and gave another son Mevdud, the Isfizar region. Kerman Malik Kavurt Bey, provoked by his vizier, rebelled again by having the khutbah read in his name in Kerman. Because of this, Sultan Alp Arslan had to organize a new campaign to Kerman. At that time, Kavurt Bey had taken refuge in the strong fortress of Bardasir. Soon, the vanguard forces sent by the Sultan under Hajib al-Tuntas and Emir Chavli defeated Kavurt's forces. The Sultan was advancing behind them with the main army toward Kerman. After this defeat, Kavurt Bey retreated to the Jiroft fortress and sent a special envoy to the Sultan to apologize, declare his loyalty, and ask for forgiveness. Sultan Alp Arslan accepted this request. Kavurt Bey came to the Sultan, embraced him, and they both cried together. After this, the Sultan returned the administration of the Kerman province to him. However, Kavurt Bey then allied with the governor of Fars, Fazlabey, and started another rebellion. Sultan Alp Arslan immediately took action and sent his vizier Nizam al-Mulk and Emir Chavli against Fazlabey. Fazlabey was quickly defeated, captured, and killed shortly after. When Sultan Alp Arslan entered Kerman during these events, he noticed many in his army supported Kavurt Bey. Because of this, he had to stop the campaign and return to Isfahan. By Sultan Alp Arslan's order, the Khorasan Salar, who had earlier made raids in Anatolia, besieged the castles of Tulhum and Siverek near Ergani, but was unsuccessful. Then he moved toward Urfa, captured some places nearby, and defeated the Duke of Antakya. However, he was not successful in the siege of Urfa. In the same year, Alp Arslan raided the Urfa region again, besieging Kisas and Celeb, and captured Difisar. He also defeated a 4,000-strong Byzantine force sent against this raid. Later that year, he raided the Urfa region for the third time, taking many prisoners and spoils. Afterwards, he moved toward Diyarbakir and set up his headquarters in front of the Ilev Gate. When he entered the city to meet with the Emir Nizam al-Din, he was trapped and killed along with his companions. Their bodies were thrown into a well, which later became known as the Khorasan Salar Well. During this time, Harun Hanoglu, probably one of the sons of Abu Ibrahim Tamgach Khan, ruler of the western Karakhanids, crossed the Anatolian borders with 1,000 Oghuz horsemen in the service of the Seljuks and raided the Diyarbakir area. He then marched with the Seljuk vassals, the Arab Mirdasid's emirs Atiya and Mahmud, against Byzantium. They captured the strategically important castles of Arta and Im. They fought successful battles against Byzantine Emperor Romanos Diogenes, who campaigned in northern Syria. In 1066, by Sultan Alp Arslan's order, the Seljuk Hajib Gumushtakin, accompanied by Afshin, Ahmet Shah, and some Turkmen beys, led a campaign to the Al-Jazira region. They advanced from the basins of the Murat and Tigris rivers and captured castles near Ergani and Nizip, but the siege of Nusaybin failed. Then they crossed the Euphrates and raided the area around Adiyaman. After this campaign, Byzantine frontier lord Aruandanos tried to launch a surprise attack against the Seljuks. However, in a battle near Kosin Castle, the Byzantine forces suffered a heavy defeat. Aruandanos was captured and later released for a ransom of 40,000 gold coins. Gumushtakin and the other emirs returned to Alat with great spoils and prisoners. But in a dispute there, Afshin killed Gumushtakin. Fearing punishment, Afshin moved west with many Turkmen horsemen under his command and started independent raids. Afshin's forces captured Duluk, northwest of Gaziantep, and other units moved toward Antioch, launching large raids in 1067. Later, Afshin advanced to Malatya, where he defeated a Byzantine unit. He passed through the Toma Valley and reached Kayseri, which he temporarily captured. Then he moved toward the Karaman region, crossed the Taurus Mountains to northern Syria, and sold the spoils and captives he obtained in the markets of Aleppo. At the beginning of 1068, Afshan again marched on Antioch and plundered the area. He received 100,000 gold coins and war supplies from the governor of Antioch. Because of these successful campaigns, Sultan Alp Arslan sent him a letter informing him that he was forgiven. After receiving the letter, Afshan left Antioch to go to the Sultan's presence. In response to these constant raids, Byzantium assigned Nikephoros Botaniates, commander of the eastern armies, to repair the castles in eastern and southern Anatolia. Botaniates repaired the castles of cities like Sivas, Malatya, and Divriği, but he could not stop the Seljuk raids. Since the beginning of the Seljuk military movements in Anatolia, the Byzantine Empire had been plagued by internal conflicts and political crises, especially after the death of Emperor Constantine the Seleucus in 1067. His wife Eudokia took the throne on behalf of their 3 young sons, as per his will. However, different groups in the Byzantine palace interfered arbitrarily with the government, weakening central authority. This caused the provinces, especially Anatolia, to be neglected and left in chaos. The Byzantine armies in Anatolia were scattered, undisciplined, and in need. Often they looted their own people to survive. As a result, there was practically no regular Byzantine army to stop the Seljuk raids. Due to increasing internal threats and military weaknesses, Empress Eudokia's regency lasted only 7 months. Under pressure from the military circles in the palace, she was forced to marry Romanos Diogenes, a general from the military aristocracy of Caesarea. Through this marriage, Romanos took the throne in January 1068, after previously failing in a coup attempt. However, after becoming emperor, Romanos Diogenes was not very successful in bringing the state out of crisis. He faced an empty treasury, neglected lands for years, and a broken army. He also had conflicts with his wife Eudokia, who did not want to share power. So he left the palace and went to Anatolia, where he began making plans specifically to stop the Seljuk raids. In 1067 to 1068, Sultan Alp Arslan launched a new campaign because non-Muslim Turkic groups from the north, along with the Alans, Komuks, Sarirs, and some Khazars, invaded the lands of the Shaddadids and Shirvanshahs, who were vassals of the Seljuks. The Sultan, moving with a large army from Khorasan, crossed the Aras River and entered Georgia. He was accompanied by his vizier Nizam al-Mulk and the Caucasus conqueror Emir Savtakin. During this campaign, the Shaddadid Emir Fadlun and the Shirvanshah ruler Fariburz renewed their allegiance. When Sultan Alp Arslan marched to the Sheki region, the Afaz and Georgians withdrew. He burned forests and destroyed the bases of the Georgian Shaki who hid there and captured their castles. The Georgian prince Bagrat fled to avoid fighting, while the ruler of Sheki, Akastan, surrendered and accepted Islam. After that, Alp Arslan captured many cities and castles within 1.5 months, including Tbilisi and Rustavi. Bagrat accepted Seljuk rule again on the condition of paying an annual tax. During this time, Seljuk raiders even launched raids as far as Trabzon. Taking advantage of the conflict between the people of Derbent and the Shirvanshahs, the Georgians recaptured Tbilisi and captured Emir Fadlun. In response, Alp Arslan sent an army under Emir Savtakin in April 1069. This army defeated the Georgians and freed Fadlun. Also, the Sultan gave the administration of Derbent to Emir Yagma. Sultan Alp Arslan's main goal was to fully conquer the regions of the Georgians and Afaz and add them to Seljuk lands, then personally lead a campaign in Anatolia to deal heavy blows to Byzantium. However, because of chaos in the eastern borders after the death of the Karakanid ruler, he had to return before fully completing these plans. Still, Alp Arslan left part of his army at the Anatolian borders and assigned Kutalmishoglu Mansur and Suleiman, his brother Yakuti, his brother-in-law Erbasan, and the famous raider Emir Sunduk to lead conquests into Byzantine lands. These commanders continued military operations in Anatolia and carried out constant raids against Byzantium. The new Byzantine emperor, Romanos Diogenes, started preparing extensively to stop the increasing Seljuk raids. He gathered many soldiers especially from around Kayseri, his own homeland in Anatolia. He also recruited Christian Oghuz and Pecheneg Turks living in Rumelia, as well as mercenaries of Frankish, German, Scandinavian, and Italian origins. However, this mixed army lacked a real sense of unity. In March 1068, the emperor marched toward Syria, but before reaching Kayseri, he learned that Seljuk forces had raided Niksar. He changed his route and headed toward Sivas and Divri. There, he encountered the Seljuks and forced them to retreat, gaining his first victory. Then he moved to Marash and sent troops to the Euphrates region to secure the front. However, the Seljuk emir Has-Inal, operating in this area, defeated the Byzantine forces and disrupted the emperor's plans. Romanos Diogenes advanced into northern Syria, causing great damage to Aleppo and its surroundings. He then captured the strategic castle of Manbij, defended by Seljuk emir Umur Tekin. At the same time, Hanoglu Harun and the Seljuk vassal emir of Aleppo, Mahmud of the Mirdasids, defeated Byzantine forces around Aleppo with Turkmen and Arab troops. Upon hearing this, the emperor came to the region and fought a fierce battle with these forces, in which both sides suffered heavy losses. After these battles, Romanos Diogenes retook the castles of Arta and Im, which had been previously captured by the Seljuks, and moved into the Çukurova region. Meanwhile, Seljuk emirs Afshin and Ahmet Shah moved toward central Anatolia and advanced to the valley of the Sakarya River. They also captured the strategic city of Amorium on the road between Constantinople and Çukurova. This news greatly upset the emperor. He tried to stop Afshin immediately, but could not succeed because of Afshin's fast and sudden movements, and with the arrival of winter, he had to return to Constantinople. Shortly after returning to Constantinople, the new Byzantine emperor Romanos Diogenes faced large-scale raids in eastern, southeastern, and southern Anatolia in 1069. These raids were carried out by Seljuk emirs Afshin, Sunduk, Ahmet Shah, Turkmen, Demlacholu Mehmet, Duduoğlu, Serhenkolu, and Arslantaş. Byzantine forces sent by the emperor to stop these raids were completely defeated by the Seljuk cavalry. Wanting to control the situation, the emperor acted on three fronts. He sent two armies, one under Manuel Komnenos to Sivas, and another under Philaretos Brachamios to Malatya. He himself led a third army and marched to the Kayseri region. There, he defeated the Seljuk forces and advanced to the Euphrates River. The emperor's main goal was to capture Ahlat, one of the most important Seljuk bases in Anatolia, to take back castles lost in the east and southeast, and to completely remove the Seljuks from Anatolia. When he reached Harput, the Seljuks attacked Malatya and dealt a heavy defeat to the Byzantine general Philaretos, defending there. Philaretos barely escaped with a small group and joined the emperor. Despite this, Romanos Diogenes advanced along the Murat River and reached Palu. However, Seljuk raiders kept pushing into Anatolia with continuous attacks, capturing many cities, especially Karaman and Konya. News that Konya had fallen to the Seljuks made the emperor give up further advances. Instead, to block the Seljuk forces' return path, he turned back from Sivas to Kayseri. But the Seljuk commanders learned of his plan in advance and used the Taurus passes to reach their base in Aleppo in the south. Thus, Romanos Diogenes failed to reach his goals in his second campaign and had to return to Constantinople. Because the Seljuk raids did not stop, the emperor planned a new campaign in Anatolia in 1070, but opposition from people close to the palace prevented this plan. Instead, he sent Manuel Komnenos, appointed commander of the eastern Anatolian armies, with a strong force. At this time, Erbasan, Alp Arslan's brother-in-law, who had rebelled, moved westward with a large group of Turkmens. He escaped from those chasing him, including Afshin and other Seljuk emirs, and reached the banks of the Kızılırmak River. The Byzantine commander Mamul tried to block his path near Sivas, but was defeated. Erbasan captured Mamul, Nikephoros, Melissenos, and some other Byzantine generals. When he learned that Seljuk emirs were pursuing him, one of the captives, Manuel, convinced Erbasan to seek refuge with Byzantium. Erbasan then released Manuel and the other generals, and, fearing Alp Arslan's wrath, went to Constantinople with his family and close followers. Emperor Romanos Diogenes welcomed and received him with a grand ceremony, treating him almost like a friendly foreign ruler. This was the first time in history that a Seljuk prince sought refuge in Byzantium. Meanwhile, Emir Afshin, who was chasing Erbasan, raided cities, castles, and towns rapidly along the Kayseri-Sivas line, moving westward. He then entered the Afyon-Uşak-Denizli region and continued his campaign through the cities of Honaz and Laodicea to the shores of the Marmara Sea. In a short time, Afshin reached Kadıköy and sent an envoy to the emperor. He said there was peace between the Seljuk and Byzantine states and asked that Erbasan, who had rebelled against the Sultan, be handed over along with his followers. However, this request was rejected. After this, in the autumn of 1070, Afshin carried out raids on Byzantine cities and castles on his way back. He spent the winter in Anatolia, with many spoils gained during this campaign. Then he returned to Alat and gave Sultan Alp Arslan detailed information about Erbasan and the Byzantines. During the rule of the 8th Fatimid Caliph Mustansir, the Fatimid Caliphate fell into great chaos because of the collapse of civil administration, an empty state treasury, and military conflicts over authority. The Caliphate's vizier, Nasir al-Din Hassan, sent the scholar Abu Ja'far Muhammad from Bukhara as an envoy to Sultan Alp Arslan in Khorasan. The envoy told the Sultan, "Come with your army to Egypt. I will hand the country over to you. I will remove the Shia sermon and replace it with a Sunni sermon." In response to this call, Sultan Alp Arslan moved to add Egypt to the Great Seljuk state as part of the Seljuk conquest plans. With a strong army, he entered eastern Anatolia through Azerbaijan in mid-1070. Strengthening his army with Seljuk raiders stationed in the region, Alp Arslan reached the gates of Malazgirt from the north of Lake Van. He captured Malazgirt, which his uncle Sultan Tural had besieged twice before, but failed to take, and then took Ersish without difficulty. Sultan Alp Arslan captured castles one by one between the Murat River and the upper branches of the Tigris that had not yet been taken by the Seljuks. He then came to Diyarbakir and camped near the Tigris River in the Harshafiya region. Admiring the magnificent walls of Diyarbakir, Sultan Alp Arslan followed an old Turkish tradition by touching the stones of the walls with his hands and then placing them on his chest. After making peace between two brothers, Nasser and Said, from the Seljuk vassal family of the Mervinids, who controlled Diyarbakir and its surroundings but were in conflict, the Sultan captured the cities and castles of Tulhum and Siverek. He then besieged Urfa, which had strong walls defended by Duke Vasil, and had resisted several previous Seljuk sieges. After 50 days of siege, the Sultan lifted it to avoid wasting time unnecessarily and to quickly complete the conquest of Egypt. Before moving on, he sent his envoy Abu Ja'far Muhammad to the Seljuk vassal emir of Aleppo, Mahmud of the Mirdasids, telling him, "Like all the vassal rulers and emirs who have pledged loyalty to me, he must come to me and renew his allegiance." Despite this, Emir Mahmud did not obey the call because of the advice of Hanolu Harun and his fear of the Sultan. He only sent money and gifts collected in Aleppo to the Sultan. In response, Sultan Alp Arslan wrote a letter to Mahmud saying, "You have khutbah read in my name and keep writing to me, but I don't understand why you are afraid to come to me and show your loyalty. You know very well the kindness and favors we show to all our subjects who come before us." When Emir Mahmud resisted, Sultan Alp Arslan left Urfa and crossed the Euphrates River near Birachik at the end of January 1071, camping in a meadow he liked very much. At that time, the scholar Abu Ja'far said to the Sultan, "O Lord, be thankful for the blessing God has given you." The Sultan asked, "What blessing is this?" The scholar answered, "Until now, only slave-origin rulers crossed this river as Turks. But today, Ali crosses it for the first time as a Turkish sultan." Soon after, the Sultan continued his journey and set up his camp in a region near Aleppo. Although another envoy was sent to Emir Mahmud to come and declare his loyalty, he never came and surrendered. Very angry at this, Sultan Alp Arslan began the siege of Aleppo at the start of April 1071. After nearly 2 months, the strongest tower of Aleppo's walls, called the Ghanem Tower, was broken. The city was now easily attackable from this point. So, a serious battle did not happen. Despite this, the desperate Emir Mahmud, dressed in Oghuz-style clothes, and came to the Sultan with his mother. He showed his loyalty by kissing the ground. Sultan Alp Arslan forgave him and gave him back the emirate of Aleppo with a decree and an honorary robe. When Sultan Alp Arslan was about a day's journey toward Damascus and Egypt, an envoy from Byzantine Emperor Romanos Diogenes arrived. The envoy demanded the return of Manbij, Alat, and Malazgirt to Byzantium, warning that otherwise the emperor would march with a large army. But when the Sultan learned that the emperor was moving toward eastern Anatolia, probably Erzurum, he sent the envoy back with a harsh answer. Then Sultan Alp Arslan left part of his army in Aleppo and sent emirs Aytekin and Mahmud to conquer Egypt. He himself quickly moved toward eastern Anatolia with most of his army to face the Byzantine emperor. While crossing the Euphrates River quickly, Sultan Alp Arslan did not mind the loss of many horses, camels, food, and supplies in his army. He kept moving forward determinedly. However, soon, because of food shortage, he had to discharge the Iraqi soldiers from his army. So only the troops from Khorasan, Aran, and Azerbaijan remained in his army. Alp Arslan continued his advance and reached the Diyarbakir region via Urfa. At that time, he had come to Silvan. The Malazgirt judge and many Muslims had escaped the attack by the Byzantine army, which had advanced and captured the Malazgirt castle. Because of the serious situation, they urgently asked the Sultan for help. After learning the position of the Byzantine army, Sultan Alp Arslan quickly crossed the Erzin and Bitlis passes and reached Alat, the Seljuks' military base in Anatolia. As we see, after 2 unsuccessful campaigns in Anatolia, the Byzantine Emperor Romanos Diogenes prepared a great army to stop the long-lasting Seljuk conquests and to drive the Turks out of these lands completely. For a long time, the emperor gathered a large multinational army for a big campaign to Anatolia and Azerbaijan. This army included Pechenegs, Christian Oghuz, Kipchaks, Khazars from the Balkans, as well as Slavs, Germans, Bulgarians, Franks, Armenians, and Georgians. Some Muslim and non-Muslim sources exaggerate the number to 600,000 soldiers, but a more realistic estimate is about 200,000 horsemen and foot soldiers, led by roughly 30,000 commanders. This army also had technical units like siege engineers, sappers, wheel operators, wagon drivers, and catapult operators. For logistics, there were 400 wagons pulled by 800 mules carrying nails and horseshoes, and 1,000 wagons carrying weapons, catapults, and other war equipment. Among them was a giant catapult, pulled by 1,200 men, capable of throwing stones weighing 10 cantars. The emperor's treasury was also impressive. 1 million gold coins, 100,000 silk clothes, golden saddles, belts, and many gold and silver items. Romanos Diogenes trusted both the size and equipment of this army, and believed he could completely clear Anatolia of Turks. He even dreamed of conquering all Islamic countries. Before the campaign, he planned to give some Islamic cities as governorships to his commanders, and even declared that he would turn all mosques into churches. Before leaving Constantinople, Romanos held a large religious ceremony in Hagia Sophia and visited the Great Cross there. Although this event is not proven by historical documents, Muslim historian Garsuni Muhammad Sabi, who lived at that time, reported that after being captured at Malazgirt, the emperor regretted and said, "One tradition of Byzantine emperors going on campaign from Constantinople is to go to Hagia Sophia and ask for help and blessing from the golden cross decorated with rubies. I followed this tradition and prayed for victory at the cross. But then I saw the cross turn from its place and face the direction of the Muslims' Qibla. I was very surprised and turned the cross back east again to its original position. The next day, when I visited again, I saw that the cross had turned toward the Qibla again. Because of this, I ordered the cross to be fixed with chains. But on the third day, when I went again, the cross had turned toward the Qibla once more. This surprised me a lot, and I took it as a sign that I would face a disaster on my upcoming campaign. However, my desires and ambitions won, so I went on a campaign to the Islamic countries. And here are the results. On the other hand, Byzantine historian Kedrenos was one who believed that signs could show what would happen to Roman and Byzantine emperors. He told that a black pigeon flew over Romanos Diogenes' head. His tent was damaged during the campaign, and the stable where his horses were kept caught fire. He saw all these as signs of the coming defeat. As mentioned, Romanos Diogenes, wanting to hide his big campaign plans, sent an envoy to Sultan Alp Arslan near Aleppo, asking for a peace deal that required returning cities like Alat, Ersish, and Malazgirt. But this was just a diplomatic move to hide his true goal. The emperor left Constantinople with his big army and reached the Sakarya River area to meet the provincial forces that were supposed to join him. He stayed there. Then he went to the Kayseri-Sivas region and held a war council. In this council, there were important debates about the strategy to use. Romanos's idea was to go directly into Azerbaijan and march from there to the Seljuk capital Rey. Young and inexperienced generals supported this plan, but experienced commanders like Nikephoros Brienios and Joseph Tarkaniotis, who was of Turkish origin, said it would be dangerous to move far from Anatolia. They believed the best strategy was to set up headquarters in Sivas or Erzurum, take defensive measures in the area, and force the Seljuk army into food shortage to bring them into a decisive battle in Erzurum or the Pasin Plain. However, the emperor rejected these opinions and was determined to follow his own plan. He came through Sivas to Erzurum and set his general headquarters there. Before starting his campaign into Iran to secure his rear, he sent 30,000 Uz and Frank troops under the command of General Tarkhaniotes and the famous Norman commander Ursul to Ahlat. At the same time, to recapture Georgia, which had come under Seljuk vassalage, and to supply his army with food, he sent another 20,000 troops to Georgia. He himself marched with the main forces toward Malazgirt, which Sultan Alp Arslan had conquered earlier. During this time, some Turkish-origin soldiers in the Byzantine army sent letters to Sultan Alp Arslan saying, "Don't worry, most of the army is with you." Also, the Uz sent the Seljuks a Turkish symbol, probably an arrow, that had been known for a long time but was not fully understood. Because of these events, Erbasan, who was thought to lead these groups and had come with the Byzantine army, was immediately sent back to Constantinople by Emperor Romanos Diogenes. As the emperor advanced to Malazgirt, Basilakes Magistros, the commander of Armenian and Elcesire forces, joined his army. At this time, two commanders named Leon Debatenes and Basilax told the emperor that Sultan Alp Arslan was afraid of the Byzantine army and had retreated to Iraq. However, according to Islamic and Byzantine sources, after leaving Aleppo and crossing the Euphrates, Alp Arslan briefly went toward Mosul, then followed the Bitlis Pass through Silvan and Erzin and reached Ahlat. When the emperor arrived at Malazgirt, he took the castle, defended by a small number of Seljuk soldiers, by peaceful surrender. Still, he killed many Muslim civilians with his sword. Meanwhile, Sultan Alp Arslan had reached Ahlat, and the Byzantine forces under Ursul and Tarkhaniotes were moving toward Ahlat. But these forces were defeated by a sudden attack of the Seljuk cavalry and had to retreat. When news spread that the Sultan had reached Ahlat, the emperor sent a reconnaissance force led by Nikephoros Bryennios to verify this information. However, this force was defeated by the troops of Emir Sunduk, the commander of the Ahlat garrison. Bryennios barely escaped, wounded. After this failure, the emperor sent a new force under Basilax, but this force was also defeated by Emir Sunduk, and Basilax was captured. Moreover, a large cross Basilax carried was taken by the Seljuk soldiers. Sultan Alp Arslan wanted this cross to be sent as a symbol of victory to the caliph in Baghdad, and ordered that it be given to his vizier Nizamul Mulk, who was at that time in Hamadan, to deliver it. Thus, the early battles before the Battle of Malazgirt ended with a victory for the Seljuk army. To meet the Byzantine emperor moving towards eastern Anatolia, Sultan Alp Arslan reached Ahlat through Diyarbakir and met Emir Afshin, who was waiting for him there. The Sultan had sent his wife and vizier Nizamul Mulk with his treasury to Hamadan, instructing them to send soldiers quickly. Alongside the Sultan were the elite Hassa army of 4,000 cavalry and about 40,000 raiders led by Seljuk princes, emirs, and Turkmen beys, who had previously raided Anatolia. Additionally, around 10,000 cavalrymen from Seljuk-controlled regions joined the army. In total, the Seljuk army numbered around 50,000, mostly horsemen. On the other side, the Byzantine army had about 200,000 soldiers from various nations, but was disorganized despite its large size. Among Sultan Alp Arslan's experienced commanders who constantly raided Anatolia were Geferayn, Afshin, Savtekin, Sunduk, Aytekin, Tarankolu, Serhenkolu, Ahmet Shah, Demleçoğlu Mehmet, and Duduoğlu. Also, valuable and battle-experienced Seljuk emirs such as Mansur, Süleyman, Devlet, Alp from the Kutalmışoğulları, and Artuk, Tutak, Danişmend, Saltuk, Mengüçük, Çavlı, Çavuldur, and Porsuk were part of the battle. After some earlier battles, Sultan Alp Arslan left Ahlat with his army and reached the Rahve plain between Ahlat and Malazgirt. There, he set up his headquarters by a stream fed by mountain waters, providing water to his troops, and took control of the surrounding hills and the plain on August 24, 1071. Today, the hills called Sultan and Ziyaret, near Mount Sufan's northern slope towards Malazgirt, are believed to be named after this headquarters. Meanwhile, the Byzantine emperor learned that the Seljuk army had positioned itself near Malazgirt and controlled the plain, causing great panic in his forces. Some Muslim civilians from Malazgirt, who were held hostage by the Byzantine army, escaped and joined the Seljuks. Because his army was smaller, Sultan Alp Arslan did not want to start a direct battle yet. Instead, he sent a peace proposal, which was actually to learn about the Byzantine army through the envoy Abul Ghanem ibnul Mahleban, sent by Abbasid Caliph Qaim B. Emrillah, along with a delegation led by Seljuk Emir Savtekin. The Sultan's message said, "Return to your country. If you want peace, we can arrange it through the Caliph of Baghdad. Otherwise, we leave our fate and hope for victory to Almighty God." However, the Byzantine emperor, confident in his large and well-equipped army, saw this as a sign of Seljuk weakness and rejected the proposal harshly. He told the Seljuk envoy, "I spent much money and effort to gain this strong position. Peace will only happen in Ray. I will not return before I rule the Islamic lands as my own." Then, mocking the envoy Ibnul Mahleban, he asked, "Which is more beautiful, Isfahan or Hamadan?" Ibnul Mahleban answered, "Isfahan." The emperor replied, "I heard Hamadan is very cold, so we will camp in Isfahan, while our animals stay in Hamadan." To this, Ibnul Mahleban gave a meaningful response. "Your animals can winter in Hamadan, but I don't know where you will winter." Before the battle, the Byzantine emperor believed he would drive the Seljuks out of Anatolia without fighting, and then conquer all Islamic countries. He divided Iran, Iraq, Syria, and Egypt among his generals, but left Baghdad out, saying, "Don't harm that good man and our friend the Sheikh." When the Seljuk envoy returned and told Sultan Alp Arslan that the emperor had rejected the peace offer, it became clear that war was unavoidable. As Christian historian Lebeau said, "Alp Arslan, braver than Romanos but seeing no hope for peace, knew it was time to take up the sword." The Sultan then ordered the war preparations to be completed quickly. At this time, the Sultan's imam and scholar, Abu Nasr Muhammad from Bukhara, said to him, "O Sultan, you fight for Islam, the religion God has favored above others. Because of this, preachers and Muslims in all mosques will pray for you. Attack the enemy at Friday noon prayer. I hope God will grant you victory." Also, the Abbasid Caliph in Baghdad, Qaim B. Emrillah, asked that prayers be made for Alp Arslan's victory in the Battle of Malazgirt, which the whole Islamic world was watching closely. The Caliph prepared a special prayer text with Muslayoglu Abu Said and ordered it to be read from all pulpits during the Friday prayer. Hearing that this prayer would be read sincerely throughout the Islamic lands, especially in Baghdad, gave strong moral support to the Turkish commanders and soldiers. Before the battle, Sultan Alp Arslan placed some cavalry units in an ambush along a small valley east of Malazgirt, stretching to the right rear of the district. He himself took position in the center of the army. The plan was to first trap the Byzantine army in a half-circle, and then surround it completely. The Byzantine center was quickly surrounded by the first strikes of the Seljuk forces. The emperor asked for help from the troops on the left wing, led by Nikephoros Bryennios, but the Seljuk cavalry, now controlling the field, blocked this aid. Meanwhile, the right-wing troops commanded by Aliates were defeated by the Seljuks. On this right wing, the Uz and Pecheneg horsemen, led by their leader Thomas, refused to fight their own kin and left the Byzantine side to join the Seljuks. This caused the complete collapse and destruction of the left wing, commanded by the famous Byzantine general Nikephoros. In this situation, the emperor tried hard to pull his army back and gather behind the camp, but the constant Turkish attacks and rain of arrows stopped this plan. Soon, the Byzantine army was completely surrounded. Behind, the reserve forces were led by Andronikos Doukas, the emperor's stepfather and almost an enemy to him. He declared that the army was destroyed, surrounded, and even that the emperor was dead, then withdrew without joining the fight. Also, the Armenian troops, upset with the Byzantines due to sectarian differences and oppression, left the battlefield. In addition, Ursel, the commander of the independent Frankish mercenaries, did not go to help the impatient emperor. Instead, he quickly withdrew westward from the Ahlat area to a place he considered safe. Sultan Alp Arslan not only led the operation to destroy the surrounded Byzantine army, but also rode his horse like a soldier, running here and there, sometimes attacking enemy soldiers with his sword and spear. At one point, a respected Seljuk emir named Aytekin got off his horse, kissed the ground, and said to him, "A sultan should be merciful to Muslims. He should not risk his precious life in battle when he has no equal, and should choose comfort over war." In response to his dear emir's words, Sultan said, "If I destroy this cruel people, then I will find peace. My suffering now will bring safety to Muslims, so I consider this hardship a kind of comfort." After encouraging Aytekin to fight, he himself continued fighting tirelessly. The battle lasted from noon until evening and even into the night, and the mighty Byzantine army could not avoid defeat. Most of the surrounded army was killed, many generals were captured, and only some soldiers escaped with their lives. During the defeat, the emperor's special tent, throne, treasury, some precious stones from the imperial crown, a valuable pearl, and various weapons and war tools were taken as spoils by the Seljuk soldiers. Emperor Romanos Diogenes, finding no way out or escape, fought on horseback with his sword, was wounded, and his horse was shot by an arrow and fell. He was left on foot in the chaos of the battlefield. Wounded, he managed to retreat to a safe place under the cover of night, waiting for his fate. By chance, he was seen by a soldier of Emir Sadudeva Gevarayan, who had gone to look for the fleeing horse. This soldier noticed the man's golden helmet and armor embroidered with gold, and thought he was someone important. Hoping for a reward, he decided not to kill him, tied his hands, brought him to his tent, and kept him there all night. The next day, this prisoner was shown to Emir Gevarayan and later taken to Sultan Alp Arslan's headquarters. There was some doubt whether he was the Byzantine emperor. However, soon after, Shadi, the servant who had been sent with a delegation before the battle, recognized him. Also, General Basilakis and other captured Byzantine leaders who were taken prisoner during earlier battles saw him and immediately cried and knelt at his feet. This left no doubt that the prisoner was indeed Emperor Romanos Diogenes. According to Islamic, Byzantine, Armenian, and Syriac sources, Sultan Alp Arslan treated the emperor not as a war prisoner, but as an honored guest ruler. When the Sultan confirmed that he was indeed the emperor, he immediately ordered a special tent to be set up for him, servants assigned to his service, and a daily allowance of money for his expenses. After some time, the Sultan brought the emperor before him, seated him in a decorated and comfortable place, and said, "I sent the caliph's messenger to you with a peace offer, yet you rejected it. I sent Emir Afshin to ask for the surrender of my enemies, but you avoided it. Despite our previous agreement, you broke it and fought me. Why did you oppress me? Yesterday, I again offered peace, but you replied that you spent much money and gathered many soldiers to come here and achieve your goal, and you cannot return without conquering the Islamic lands and accepting the results of these invasions. The emperor replied, O Sultan, I spent money and gathered soldiers to take your land, yet you won the victory. My country is ruined, and I stand here captive before you. So please do not scold me or speak harshly. Do what you wish. The Sultan asked, If you had won and taken me captive like this, what would you have done? The emperor answered, Bad things. The Sultan said, You spoke truthfully. If you had said otherwise, you would have been lying. Then the Sultan said to those around him, This is a wise and brave man. Therefore killing him would be wrong. Turning to the emperor, he asked, What do you think I will do with you now? The emperor replied, You can do one of three things. First, kill me. Second, display me as a warning to your people in the land you want to take. Or third, something you cannot do and therefore need not say. The Sultan asked, What is that? The emperor said, Forgive me, accept my goodwill with money and gifts, and send me back to my country as your commander and deputy. If you kill me, it will not help you because someone else will become emperor in my place. In response, the Sultan said, I intend to forgive you. But now that your heart is relieved and you know my decision, tell me the amount of ransom money you want for your release. The emperor said, The Sultan should state the amount. When the Sultan said 10 million gold coins, the emperor replied, Because you spared my life, the right to the Byzantine lands belongs to you. Since I took the throne, I have spent the country's wealth and money preparing armies and fighting, causing the people to become poor. If that were not the case, I would give much more than you ask. Thus, after negotiations between Alp Arslan and Romanos Diogenes, a peace treaty was made with the following terms. The emperor would pay a ransom of 1.5 million gold coins. The Byzantine Empire would pay 360,000 gold coins annually as tax to the Seljuk state. Islamic prisoners held by Byzantium would be freed. The Byzantines would provide military support to the Seljuks when needed. The emperor would give one of his daughters to the Sultan's son in marriage. And if the emperor returned to the throne, he would give the cities and castles of Antioch, Urfa, Manbij, and Malazgirt to the Seljuks. After the peace treaty was made, the emperor told the Sultan, Send me quickly to Constantinople before someone else takes my place. Otherwise, the goal won't be reached, and I won't be able to return to the Byzantine throne as emperor. In that case, none of the peace terms will be fulfilled. After these talks, the emperor was taken to a special tent prepared for him and given a loan of 10,000 gold coins. He shared some of this money with his close people and used some to free a few captured generals. By the order of Sultan Alp Arslan, the remaining Byzantine generals were released without ransom. The next day, the emperor was brought before the Sultan again, dressed in special clothes and his own captured crown. The Sultan said to him, I trust you and believe your words, so I will send you back to your country and restore your rule. Then the Sultan gave him a flag with the Islamic declaration of faith on it. The Sultan rode his horse and walked 2 kilometers with the emperor to see him off. When saying goodbye, the emperor tried to get off his horse to show respect to the Sultan, but the Sultan stopped him, and after swearing to always remain friends, embraced and bid farewell to him. Then the Sultan returned to Isfahan, and the emperor set out for Constantinople, accompanied by 2 courtiers and 100 elite soldiers. After some soldiers escaped the defeat at Malazgirt and reached Constantinople to report the situation, the Byzantine Senate gathered and dethroned Romanos Diogenes, naming Michael VII Ducas as the new emperor. When Romanos Diogenes heard this news while traveling through Erzurum and Şebinkarahisar toward Amasya, or Tokat, he sent a letter to the new emperor saying, "I spent much money and gathered soldiers to defend and raise the Christian faith. But the victory was yours. My country is ruined, and I stand captive before you. I have left the throne, put on a humble robe, and settled in a fortress. I thank God for your rightful claim to the Byzantine throne. Now I inform you of the Sultan's kindness and humanity toward me. Do not break the peace I made with him. If you accept and follow my advice, I will mediate between you and the Sultan to protect Christianity. But if you refuse, it is your choice. Then pay the ransom arranged for me and free me from this burden." The new emperor Michael Ducas accepted this proposal, saying that the Byzantine treasury was very low due to constant wars. He sent only part of the ransom and promised to pay the rest later. Romanos Diogenes gave this money, along with 200,000 gold coins he collected in Amasya and precious jewels worth 70,000 gold coins, to 2 Seljuk courtiers who had come with him to deliver to the Sultan. He told them to inform the Sultan that it was not possible to send more. He also gave money and gifts to the courtiers and soldiers and sent them back. Romanos Diogenes later tried to reclaim the throne, but was defeated in battles with Konstantinos Ducas near Tokat. In 1072, he also lost a battle against the Emperor Michael Ducas's son, Andronikos Ducas, in the Tarsus Plains. Soon after, Romanos Diogenes surrendered on the condition his life would be spared. He was blinded and imprisoned in Kütahya. He wrote a letter to Sultan Alp Arslan from prison describing his sad condition and later died in great suffering on Kınalada. After the famous Battle of Malazgirt, which was closely followed by the entire Islamic world, Sultan Alp Arslan sent victory letters to rulers of all Islamic countries, including the Abbasid Caliph in Baghdad, to announce his great success. The victory letter was brought to the Caliph in Baghdad and read publicly before the Caliph's officials and the gathered crowd. This occasion was celebrated with great joy and festivities, including drum and horn playing and the building of victory arches. The Caliph Qaim Biemrilla sent Sultan Alp Arslan a special letter along with valuable gifts to congratulate him on his unique victory. In the letter, he addressed him with titles such as Favored by God, Victorious Son, Greatest Sultan, Ruler of Arabs and Persians, Lord of World Rulers, Helper of Muslims, Refuge of People, the state's strong arm, Shining Crown of the Religion, and Sultan of the Islamic lands. Besides the Caliph, rulers from other Islamic countries also sent separate special delegations to Sultan Alp Arslan in Isfahan with valuable gifts and congratulations. Poets and writers of the time composed praises and odes in his honor. Many historians who wrote detailed accounts compared this great victory to the famous battles of Qadisiyah and Yarmouk during the time of Caliph Omar, which ensured Islamic dominance in Asia and the Mediterranean. This great victory was closely watched and admired not only in the Islamic world, but also in Byzantine and European countries. Just a few years after the victory, as the Turks took control of Anatolia and Syria, all of Europe prepared to save Byzantium and started planning the Crusades. The Battle of Malazgirt is one of the turning points in Turkish and world history. After this victory, the large Byzantine army, prepared with all the empire's resources, was destroyed. In the following years, Turkish raiders moved into Anatolia without facing significant resistance and quickly advanced to the Sea of Islands and the Marmara coasts. The Turks, now moving like a flood, were no longer just raiding, but began settling in the conquered lands. After the victory, several Turkish states were established. The Seljukids centered in Erzurum in the upper Euphrates, the Mengucikids between Erzincan and Şebinkarahisar in the lower Euphrates, the Danishmends with Sivas as their capital in central Anatolia, the Dilmaçoğulları in Bitlis and Erzan, the Sökmenids in the Van Lake Basin, the Yunaloğulları in Diyarbakır, the Çubukoğulları in Harput, and the Artukids in Hasankeyf, Mardin, and Harput in southeastern Anatolia. These states played important historical roles in making Anatolia a Turkish homeland. In summary, the greatest gift Sultan Alp Arslan gave to the Turkish nation with the Malazgirt victory and establishing an independent state there, allowing Turks to play important roles in world politics. After the victory, Sultan Alp Arslan returned to Isfahan. He felt the need to launch a campaign into Transoxiana against his son Ayaz, the ruler of Balkh and the surrounding region, who was fighting and causing unrest, and his son-in-law, the Karakhanid ruler Shams al-Muluk Nasr. Taking advantage of Nasr Khan's campaign to Turkestan, Melik Ayaz raided Samarkand, Bukhara, and nearby areas. Nasr Khan, after returning from his campaign, attacked Ayaz and defeated him, capturing many of Ayaz's soldiers and killing some. During this conflict, Nasr Khan killed his wife by beating her because she was secretly helping his brother Ayaz against him. Because of these events, Sultan Alp Arslan moved against Nasr Khan with a large Seljuk army of about 200,000 soldiers, according to the sources. The great Seljuk army crossed the Amu Darya River by building a bridge made by lining up ships side by side and started advancing into Transoxiana without facing any resistance. According to Armenian historian Mateos of Urfa, the commander of Berzum Castle, Yusuf from Khwarezm, saw that resisting the Seljuk army was pointless and planned to kill the Sultan by surrendering. After hosting a feast in the castle one night, to avoid being captured, he strangled his wife and 3 children and surrendered to the Seljuk forces. Soon after, Yusuf was brought to the Sultan's presence to pay respects. While bowing to kiss the Sultan's hand, he suddenly pulled a hidden knife from his boot and seriously wounded the Sultan. Yusuf was immediately killed by those near the Sultan. Most Islamic sources tell a less believable story about the Sultan's death. Yusuf, caught at Berzum Castle and brought before the Sultan, was threatened and frightened. The Sultan ordered 2 soldiers holding him to tie him to 4 stakes, binding his hands and feet. When the Sultan tried to shoot an arrow at Yusuf, Yusuf insulted him and asked, "Is this how you kill a prisoner?" The Sultan ordered his bonds to be undone and tried to shoot again, but missed. As the Sultan walked toward Yusuf, he tripped and fell. Yusuf then quickly attacked and stabbed the Sultan, but was killed immediately by the Sultan's servants. It is very unlikely that Yusuf could have killed the Sultan in the presence of all the commanders and officials as described. Sultan Alp Arslan, seriously wounded by Yusuf, was taken away immediately and treated. Before dying, the Sultan made the following will to his commanders. Melikşah will take the Seljuk throne, and Nizamul Mulk will remain his vizier. His brother Ayaz will receive the lands of their father Çağrı and 500,000 gold coins. Kavurt will be given Fars and Shiraz and marry Seferiye Hatun. After making his will, the Sultan died 4 days later, on November 24, 1072. His body was taken to Merv, where he had ruled and buried. Because his death might cause unrest in the army and the country, it was kept secret until the Amu Darya River was crossed, then announced. When the news reached Baghdad, Caliph Qaim B. Emrillah declared a week of mourning on January 20th, 1073, honoring the great services the Sultan had given to Islam. Alparslan's sister Arslan Hatun, wife of the Caliph, tore her hair and spent days lying on the ground in grief. In all the provinces, towns, and villages of the Seljuk lands, including Baghdad, people mourned deeply. Shops were closed, and even non-Muslim Turkish citizens like Greeks, Armenians, and Georgians praised the just Sultan, as recorded in their sources. Ebu Shuja Muhammad Alparslan was a very merciful, charitable, kind to his people, religious, just, and brave ruler. His father Çağrı appointed the famous statesman Nizamul Mulk as his vizier and guardian to ensure he was well educated. His calmness and wise decisions shown in various speeches, actions, and events recorded in Eastern and Western sources prove this clearly. Especially after Sultan Tuğrul's death, he criticized Vizier Kundurë, who had read the khutbah for his brother Suleiman and placed him on the throne, saying, "You are an experienced statesman educated in philosophy, politics, and various sciences. While Kutulmuş was in rebellion and Kavurt was busy in Kirman, you set aside me, the strongest, and chose the weak Suleiman as sultan. This is not understandable." This shows what kind of statesman he was. Also, before the Battle of Malazgirt, he said to his army, "Here today, there is neither a commanding sultan nor a soldier emir. I am one of you and will join the battle in front of you." After Sultan Alp Arslan died, his son Melikşah took the Seljuk throne. Melikşah was born on August 6, 1055. From a young age, he joined his father on military campaigns and helped with state affairs. In early 1064, Alp Arslan left the city of Rey with Melikşah and Vizier Nizam al-Mulk and entered Azerbaijan with a large army. They crossed the Aras River using a bridge made of boats. The army then split into two parts. One part, led by Alp Arslan, moved towards Georgia. The other, led by Melikşah, Yakuti, and Nizam al-Mulk, followed the Aras River. This group captured a Byzantine castle, then took Surmeli, southeast of Kars, and then a castle called Hagios Georgio. These areas were given to the governor of Nakhchivan, Abu Dulef. Later, they besieged the city of Mariamnishan, an important Christian center, and captured it. After that, the two parts of the army joined again. Alp Arslan was very happy with his son's bravery during the campaign. The campaign ended with the capture of Ani. After the victory, Alp Arslan went to Merv and arranged a marriage between Melikşah and Terkan Khatun of the Karakanid dynasty. Since Melikşah was young, this marriage was mostly a formal engagement. In July 1066, near Nishapur, Alp Arslan officially declared Melikşah as his heir in a big ceremony. Although he had other sons, he chose Melikşah because he believed he had the talent and courage to rule. He made the Seljuk commanders swear loyalty to Melikşah. He also walked in front of him, showing respect and giving him symbols of rulership. He ordered that Melikşah's name be mentioned after his In Friday sermons. Melikşah was given command of 15,000 soldiers and stayed mostly in Isfahan to gain experience. Even after all this, Alp Arslan reminded people of Melikşah's right to the throne. Before the Battle of Manzikert, he told his wife and Nizam al-Mulk, "If I become a martyr, my son Melikşah will rule." He also asked the Abbasid Caliph to approve Melikşah's position. The Caliph agreed and sent a representative to give Melikşah official garments of honor in 1072. Alp Arslan's last campaign was against the Karakanids in Transoxiana. During this campaign, he was stabbed by Yusuf al-Barzami on November 20th, 1072, and died 4 days later. Before dying, he asked that Melikshah take the throne. He also gave his other son, Ayaz, a large amount of gold and warned Melikshah to fight him if he rebelled. After Alp Arslan's death, Seljuk leaders followed his wishes and declared Melikshah the new sultan on November 25, 1072. Melikshah knew he had to act quickly against enemies and rivals, so he left Transoxiana and returned fast. The bridge they crossed in 20 days on the way there was crossed in just 3 days on the return. Soldiers' pay was increased by 700,000 gold coins to gain their loyalty. On December 31st, 1072, Melikshah reached Nishapur, the capital of Khorasan. He gave out many treasures to commanders and leaders to win their support. He also sent messages to nearby rulers and asked them to accept his authority and mention his name in Friday sermons. Even with all the precautions, some neighboring states tried to take advantage of Alp Arslan's death and attacked Seljuk lands. The first was the Karakhanid ruler Shams al-Mulk Nasr Fuerm. On December 15, 1072, he captured the city of Termez and took its valuable items to Samarkand. At that time, Prince Ayaz, the governor of Balkh, had gone to Juzjan. Seeing his absence, Shams al-Mulk marched to Balkh, captured and looted it, and had the Friday sermon read in his name. Ayaz quickly returned on January 13, 1073, and recaptured the city. Later, on March 6, 1073, he marched with 10,000 horsemen to Termez, but failed. Many Seljuk soldiers drowned while crossing the Amu Darya. Some were killed, and only a few survived. Another threat came from the Ghaznavids. In January or February 1073, they attacked the city of Chigilkent, which was ruled by Melikshah's uncle Osman bin Chagri. He could not resist the attack and was taken prisoner with his men and brought to Ghazni. His treasure was also taken. In response, a Seljuk army under Gumushtegin Bilgebey advanced, and the Ghaznavids retreated after looting the city. Meanwhile, Melik Kavurt, the ruler of Kirman, heard about Alp Arslan's death while in Oman. Despite the winter season, he returned by ship. Many of his ships sank, and most of his soldiers died by drowning or freezing. Still, Alp Arslan's death was a great chance for Kavurt to try to take the throne. He had tried before, after Sultan Tugrul's death, but failed. Kavurt thought 18-year-old Melikshah was young and inexperienced. He trusted his own age, experience, and past successes. More importantly, some Seljuk commanders invited him to take the throne and promised support. His own advisors also encouraged him. Melikshah, however, sent him a kind letter after his father's death. Kavurt replied clearly, "I am the older brother, you are the young son. I deserve our brother Alp Arslan's throne more than you." Melikshah answered, "While a son lives, the brother cannot take the inheritance." Vizier Nizam al-Mulk and Commander Temirel also sent letters to stop Kavurt, but they failed. Kavurt wanted to go to the Turkmen tribes between Rey and Hamadan. He believed that if he could gain their support, his army would become stronger. He moved toward Rey with 2,000 horsemen and 4,000 foot soldiers, but Melikshah and Nizam al-Mulk acted fast. They entered Rey before Kavurt and took Alp Arslan's treasure of 500,000 gold coins, 5,000 clothes, and many weapons. They gave these to the Turkmen, winning their loyalty. This smart move gave Melikshah a big advantage. When Kavurt arrived 2 days later, he found the Turkmen no longer supported him. Melikshah's army was made up of Turkmens, Arabs, and Gulams, which means slave soldiers. He was also supported by the ruler of Mosul, Sharaf al-Dawla Muslim, and Baha al-Dawla Mansur, the son of the ruler of Hilla. There is no exact information about the size of Kavurt's army. First, the advance troops of both sides fought. Meliksha's commander, Emir Savtakin, defeated Kavurt's front units. The main armies met near the city of Hamadan, at the border of an area called Karaj. There are two different reports about the exact date of the battle, but April 15th, 1073, is the generally accepted one. The right wing of Meliksha's army was led by Emir Savtakin, and the left wing by Emir Temirel. Meliksha and Nizam al-Mulk stayed in the center. Kavurt was also in the center with one of his sons, while his other sons commanded the army's wings. Kavurt started the battle. He first attacked Meliksha's right wing and defeated it. But when he attacked the center, where Meliksha and Nizam al-Mulk were, he failed and lost. Kavurt had believed that some of Meliksha's soldiers would join him during the battle, as they had sent him letters before. When that didn't happen, he regretted starting the rebellion. After seeing his soldiers flee, Kavurt had no choice but to escape to the mountains of Hamadan. So the battle that lasted 3 days ended with Meliksha's victory. Kavurt's treasure, weapons, clothes, and other belongings were captured. However, after the battle, it became clear that Kavurt didn't trust his soldiers, and that the troops from Sharaf al-Dawla and Baha al-Dawla had played an important role in the victory. This angered the Turkish soldiers in Meliksha's army, and they attacked and looted the tents of these allies. A short time after the war, a villager came to Meliksha and said that Kavurt and his son were hiding in a nearby village. Meliksha went to the area and also sent a group under Emir Temirel to capture Kavurt. Temirel found Kavurt and arrested him. Kavurt offered him gifts and land in exchange for his freedom, but Temirel refused and said, "You are the master, and we are your servants. It's not our place to decide. Let's go to the Sultan, and he will decide." Although Kavurt was not treated well, when Meliksha saw him, he felt sympathy for his uncle. Meliksha said, "An uncle is like a father. I won't break our family bond." But Nizam al-Mulk replied, "If he had won, he wouldn't have shown you mercy." Meliksha answered, "Is there anyone more ruined than a man who kills his own uncle with his own hand?" Later, Kavurt was given to Emir Savtakin, who kept him in a tent and then took him to Hamadan. But there were worries that the soldiers might cause trouble because of Kavurt, and those worries came true. After the battle, some soldiers went to Nizam al-Mulk and said, "We want higher salaries and land as a reward. If not, we'll make Kavurt the new sultan." This was a serious threat. Nizam al-Mulk calmed them down and said he would talk to the sultan. He explained the danger to Meliksha. Since some soldiers still supported Kavurt, it became necessary to remove him. Nizam al-Mulk convinced the sultan, and they decided to execute Kavurt. When Meliksha arrived in Hamadan, he gave the order to kill Kavurt. Hearing this, Kavurt begged for his life. He said, "I will no longer fight for the throne. Let all my lands and wealth go to the sultan. I only want to live in prayer. Even if I'm in chains, I will be happy as long as I can remember God. Killing me won't help the Seljuk family, but treat me in a way that suits a Turk." But his pleas were ignored. He was strangled with the string of his own bow and killed in April or May 1073. This ended the threat to Meliksha's rule. Later, Kavurt's sons, who had been captured, were blinded. This caused great anger among the Seljuk soldiers. They believed it was Nizam al-Mulk's idea. The soldiers said, "This was not Alp Arslan's wish. He wanted to give Kavurt some land and let him marry Seferiye Hatun." Many soldiers cursed the sultan and his vizier, left the army, and started looting towns. Nizam al-Mulk told Meliksha about the situation. The sultan said, Do what you think is best." But Nizam replied, "I won't act without your clear command." Then the Sultan said, "I trust you with all state matters. You are like a father to me." He gave full authority to Nizam al-Mulk. Using this authority, Nizam al-Mulk managed to calm the unrest in the army. For his success, the Sultan rewarded him. He added the city of Tus to Nizam al-Mulk's lands, gave him gifts and a robe of honor, and granted him the title Atabeg. After defeating his uncle Kavurt, Sultan Melik Shah had no more rivals for the Seljuk throne. But according to Islamic tradition, his rule also needed to be approved by the Abbasid Caliph. So he sent Sa'd al-Dawla Gevurayn, the governor of Baghdad, as an ambassador to the Caliph al-Qarim bi Amrillah. Gevurayn arrived in Baghdad in October 1073 and was welcomed with a grand ceremony. During the event, the Caliph gave Gevurayn an official document confirming Melik Shah's rule and handed over a banner he had personally prepared. On that day, people were allowed into the Caliph's palace to witness the event. After dealing with Kavurt's rebellion, Melik Shah turned his attention to foreign enemies who had acted against the Seljuks after Alp Arslan's death. His first target was the Karakhanids. While preparing for the campaign, he received news that his brother Ayaz had died in Balkh on March 10, 1074. This meant one less possible rival. Melik Shah did not show much sadness. Nizam al-Mulk advised him to wear black clothes, mourn quietly, and avoid showing joy, which he did. After the mourning ended, Melik Shah gave the regions of Balkh and Tokharistan, which Ayaz had ruled, to Shihab al-Dawla Tekic. When preparations were complete, Melik Shah marched on Tirmiz, which was under Karakhanid control. While in Herat, he received a letter from the Karakhanid ruler Nasr Arth. It said, "If you want to keep peace between us, leave Tirmiz alone. The Khans have ruled this land for a long time. If you stop, we will remain friends. If not, we are ready with sword and arrow." After this, Melik Shah went to Balkh. The people and religious leaders welcomed him and complained about Karakhanid raids. A Karakhanid messenger also arrived, bringing a mace weighing 50 men and a sword weighing 10 men. He told Melik Shah, "The Khan says, 'We fight with this sword, we strike with this mace. Even mountains cannot stand against us.'" Melik Shah listened quietly, then ordered his army to get ready and go to the open plain. He himself mounted his horse and showed his strength. He took the mace, spun it 7 times over his head, threw it 80 steps away, then caught it before it hit the ground. Then he cut off the neck of a big female camel with one swing of his sword. Finally, he took a bow and arrow, handed the bow to the messenger, and said, "Tell your Khan, he can keep his sword and mace. We have our bow and arrows." He then sent the envoy back. Melik Shah also sent his own messenger, Nushtekin Mameri, to the Karakhanid ruler. He placed the bow in front of Nasr Afwar, but the ruler could not bend or use it. This embarrassment made the Karakhanid ruler act quickly, and he sent his brother Yagan Tekin to Tirmiz. Melik Shah, along with Nizam al-Mulk, moved toward Tirmiz. He also sent Emir Savtekin ahead to stop any help coming from Samarkand. Savtekin defeated the Karakhanid troops near the Amu Darya River, cutting off support for Tirmiz. The Seljuk army then besieged Tirmiz and attacked it with catapults. As the city was being hit, the people asked for peace. But 2 Karakhanid soldiers shot arrows at the Seljuks, so the battle restarted. The Seljuk army attacked and took the city. The people were taken as prisoners, including Yagan Tekin. But Melik Shah released him and the others, and added Tirmiz to Seljuk lands. Melik Shah gave Tirmiz castle to Emir Savtekin, and ordered him to repair it, strengthen the walls, and deepen the moats. Then Melik Shah marched to Samarkand. When the Karakhanid ruler Nasr heard that the Seljuks were getting close, he fled the city. He sent a peace request through Nizam al-Mulk and apologized for the attack on Tirmiz. Melik-Shah accepted the peace and made a treaty with him, then returned to Khorasan in 1074. After gaining control over the Karakhanids, Melik-Shah turned to the Ghaznavids. He gathered his troops and moved toward Ghazni, stopping in Isfizar, south of Herat. The Ghaznavid Sultan Ibrahim used a clever tactic. He sent fake letters to Melik-Shah that looked like they were from Seljuk commanders, pretending they had joined him. When Melik-Shah read the letters, he believed the lie and cancelled the campaign, returning to Isfahan. Even though the campaign ended early, it still brought good results. Sultan Ibrahim freed Emir al-Umara Osman. Also, ties between the two dynasties were strengthened through marriage. Ibrahim's envoys came to Ray with gifts and asked to marry Melik-Shah's daughter to his son and heir, Masud. Melik-Shah agreed and sent his daughter Gever to marry the Ghaznavid prince. After these events, Sultan Melik-Shah moved from Ray toward Jurjan. During this time, an envoy from his uncle Osman, recently released by the Ghaznavids, came and said Osman wanted to meet him. Melik-Shah then went to the Seraks and Badghis area to see his uncle. Osman tried to bow before him, but the guards didn't allow it. Instead, Melik-Shah stepped down from his throne, hugged his uncle, and sat next to him. Later, Melik-Shah gave Osman control of Velwalij in East Turkestan. He also allowed him to hold official ceremonies, have Friday prayers said in his name, and carry a black umbrella, a sign of power. Around the same time, Melik-Shah assigned his brother Boribarsh to rule the regions of Gur, Gargistan, and Herat. After Alp Arslan's brother-in-law Erbaskan took refuge with the Byzantines, some of his Turkmen followers went to Palestine under the leadership of Kurlu al-Turki, Uvakoglu Atsız, his brothers, and Shoklu Bey. They settled there under Fatimid rule and soon gained military power. In 1061, Kurlu Bey died during a siege of Acre. His place was taken by Atsız Bey. Atsız first captured Ramla, then besieged Jerusalem. The Turkish-origin governor of Jerusalem surrendered peacefully, asking for safety. Since there was no looting, the people were happy with Atsız. Atsız then tried to take Damascus and kept pressure on the city. At the same time, Shoklu Bey was active along the coast and besieged Acre. In late 1074, Acre's governor Ibn Suka opened the gates for Shoklu, who entered the city. Atsız then asked Shoklu to share the loot and to have his name mentioned as the ruler. Shoklu refused, saying he had conquered the city with his own sword. Afraid of an attack by Atsız, Shoklu formed alliances with the governor of Damascus and the Kilab tribe. But Atsız quickly moved against him and defeated him in a battle around May 1075. After this victory, Atsız continued the siege of Damascus. Shoklu looked for new allies and reached out to the sons of Kutalmış. In a letter he said, "You are a Seljuk prince. It would be an honor for us to serve you." One of them accepted the invitation and came with his younger brother and nephew from southeastern Anatolia to join Shoklu in Tiberias. However, their battle against Atsız ended in failure. In the battle at Tiberias, Shoklu and his allies were defeated. Atsız had Shoklu and his son killed. The captured members of the Kutalmış family, probably Alp Ilik, Devlet, and the nephew, were reported to Sultan Melik-Shah, who ordered that they be sent to Isfahan. After solving the problem with Shoklu, Atsız expanded his rule. He conquered Rafania and gave its rule to his brother Çavlı. His forces reached near Aleppo. The local ruler Nasr paid 15,000 gold coins to stop Atsız's pressure. Later, Tripoli and Tyre also came under his control. Sultan Melik-Shah, watching these developments carefully, feared that Atsız might want to act independently because of his great conquests. To prevent this, he planned to send his brother Tutush to Syria. Atsız heard about this plan and sent a letter to the Sultan saying, "I collect taxes, say the Friday sermon in your name, and send goods to you. Why am I being removed after all I have achieved?" After reading the letter, Melikşah agreed with Atsız and kept him in power. To honor him, he also sent a special robe, a cap, a horse, a sword, and a shield. After taking control of Palestine and Syria, Atsız focused on his next goal, ending the Fatimid rule in Egypt. He began making preparations. At that time, a Turkish emir named Ildinikzoglu came to him, fleeing the Fatimid vizier Badr al-Jamali. Ildinikzoglu gave Atsız detailed information about Egypt and encouraged him to conquer it. The Fatimid state was weak at that time due to political problems. This situation made Atsız want to launch the campaign quickly. However, Badr al-Jamali's strong leadership had started to stabilize the Fatimids again. Still, Atsız began his march to Egypt in late 1076 with two brothers, Ildinikzoglu, and an army of 5,000 made up of Turkmens and Arabs. The first target was the city of Rif. Following Ildinikzoglu's advice, Atsız first decided to capture the city of Rif. After a siege lasting 50 days, Rif was conquered. Atsız then advanced toward Cairo. Meanwhile, the Fatimid vizier Badr al-Jamali was preparing for war and trying to weaken Atsız's army. A commander named Badr bin Hazim, along with 3,000 horsemen from Atsız's army, switched sides and joined the Fatimids. Also, Şoklu's father convinced 700 Turkmens in Atsız's army to betray him during battle. In January 1077, Atsız reached near Cairo. A 2,000-man Fatimid force sent by Badr al-Jamali was defeated by Atsız. This caused great fear and panic in Cairo. The Fatimid Caliph Mustansir and the vizier even planned to flee to Alexandria if they lost. Finally, the two armies met outside Cairo. But because of the betrayals in his army, especially the 700 Turkmens, Atsız was defeated. He had to retreat, leaving behind many dead and captured soldiers. When Atsız returned to Syria, the cities of Gaza and Ramla did not open their gates to him, so he went back to Damascus. The people welcomed him again and asked him to stay and protect the city. At that time, new Turkmen soldiers from Anatolia joined him. But after his loss in Cairo, Arab rulers in Syria started saying the Friday prayer in the Fatimid Caliph's name again. Atsız had to bring these cities back under control. One of them was Jerusalem. During the Egypt campaign, Atsız and his commanders had left their families and treasures in Jerusalem's Tower of David. But the city's judge and leaders had taken the goods for themselves and enslaved the women and children. Atsız camped outside Jerusalem and asked the city to surrender, but his offer was refused with insults. Eventually, Atsız's wife dropped a rope down from the tower and helped Seljuk soldiers climb up. They captured the tower and took the city. Atsız punished the judge and others who had betrayed him. He then went to Ramla, but found it empty. Earlier, he had taken Gaza and Jaffa and destroyed its walls. This way, Atsız brought the rebellious cities back under control after his defeat in Egypt. However, during this time, he had neglected Damascus. The city had fallen into poverty, disease, and fire damage. When Sultan Melikşah heard about Atsız's defeat, he thought he might be dead. So he appointed his brother Tutuş, the governor of Ganja, as ruler of Syria and Palestine. Tutuş began his journey, and upon reaching Diyarbakir, learned that Atsız was still alive. He informed the Sultan. Atsız also found out that Tutuş had been appointed in his place and sent a letter with gifts and money, asking, "What have I done to deserve being replaced? I have always served the Sultan loyally in these lands." After reading the letter, Melikshah ordered Tutush to move toward Aleppo instead. Tutush captured Manbij first, and then marched on Aleppo. Meanwhile, the Fatimids were recovering, thanks to Vizier Badr al-Jamali. This gave them hope of regaining Syria and Palestine. In 1078, Badr al-Jamali sent an army led by his slave Nasr al-Dawla Juyushi to attack Damascus. But Atsas defended the city strongly, and the Fatimid army had to retreat. Still, the Fatimids didn't give up. In October 1079, a large Fatimid army led by Nasr al-Dawla again invaded Syria. They first captured Palestine, then besieged Damascus. Atsas had no choice but to ask Tutush for help. Tutush quickly left Aleppo and marched toward Damascus. When the Fatimids heard this, they lifted the siege and returned to Egypt. Tutush met Atsas near Damascus, in a place called Azra. Atsas declared his loyalty and gave him control of Damascus. But Tutush suspected Atsas of plotting against him and had him strangled with a bowstring in 1079. This gave Tutush full control over Syria and Palestine. After Kavurt's death, 3 of his sons were imprisoned in Hamadan by Melikshah. Later, Sultan Shah and his brothers escaped and went to Kerman. In October 1074, Sultan Shah took the throne of the Kerman Seljuks in the city of Bardasir. At first, Melikshah didn't react harshly. He allowed them to rule Kerman and Oman, and even sent them robes of honor. But not long after, he set out for Kerman with a large army. This was likely due to others speaking badly of Sultan Shah to him. When Sultan Shah heard Melikshah was marching against him, he was at a feast in a village called Aliabad, about 5 farsakhs from Bardasir. He quickly left and returned to the city. When Melikshah arrived with his army, Sultan Shah locked himself inside. Realizing he could not resist, he came out and offered gifts to the Sultan. After discussions and negotiations through the commanders, Melikshah forgave Sultan Shah and let him remain in power, but made him swear loyalty. However, before the campaign, Melikshah had vowed to damage Bardasir. To keep this vow, he had a tower of the fortress destroyed. Melikshah stayed at Bardasir for 17 days. He married one of his daughters to Sultan Shah and returned to Isfahan. Sources disagree on the exact date of this event. Some say it happened in 1076, while others, especially Arabic sources, say it happened in 1080. In January 1085, the ruler of the Kerman Seljuks, Sultan Shah, died. His brother Turan Shah took the throne. Their mother went to Sultan Melikshah with valuable gifts to get his official approval. Melikshah honored her and officially appointed Turan Shah as the ruler of Kerman. After the death of the Byzantine Emperor Romanos Diogenes in 1072, the peace treaty made after the Battle of Manzikert was broken. Sultan Alp Arslan had already ordered the Seljuk princes and commanders to continue the raids into Anatolia. These campaigns continued under Sultan Melikshah as well. Members of the Seljuk royal family, like the sons of Kutulmush, along with commanders such as Tutak and Artuk Bey, crossed the Kızılırmak River and advanced into central Anatolia. The new Byzantine emperor, Michael VII Dukas, sent his relatives Isakios and Alexios Komnenos to stop the Seljuk advance. A Norman commander named Urselius de Bailleul also joined the Byzantine army. When the Byzantine army reached Kayseri, Ursel had a disagreement with Isakios and left the army with his men, heading to Sivas. Isakios continued and fought the Seljuks near Kayseri, but was defeated and captured. He was later released for a ransom and returned to Constantinople with his brother Alexios. Meanwhile, in 1073, Turkish commanders like Artuk, Tutak, Afshin, Dilmaçoğlu Mehmet, Serhengolu, and Duduoğlu continued to conquer central Anatolia. Michael VII organized another campaign and sent his uncle Ioannis with an army. This army included Nikephoros Botaniates and also aimed to capture Ursul. However, Ioannis failed and was captured by Ursul, who then declared Ioannis as a new emperor. Botaniates asked for help from Artuk Bey. Seljuk forces under Artuk defeated and captured both Ursul and Ioannis. Artuk later released them for ransom. Ioannis returned to Constantinople, while Ursul continued rebellious activity around Amasya and Niksar. Michael VII then sent a new army under Alexios Komnenos. Ursul made an alliance with Tutak, a Seljuk commander near Amasya. However, Alexios bribed Tutak, who betrayed Ursul and handed him over to Alexios in Amasya. While all this was happening, Seljuk forces were expanding westward, to Izmit, the Aegean region, and near Trabzon in the north. The sons of Kutalmış began conquests in southeastern Anatolia. Artuk Bey captured areas around Yeşilırmak and Kelkit from 1074. Emir Mengucek was active in Divriği, Erzincan, and Şebinkarahisar. Emir Ebulkasim in Erzurum and the Çoruh River basin. Later, Artuk Bey was recalled by Sultan Melikşah due to power struggles. After his departure, Danişmend Gazi started conquests in the same regions. In 1077, Seljuk commander Gümüştekin Kandar defeated Byzantine forces around Urfa. At the same time, a rising Armenian leader named Philaretos Brachamios gained power. Once a general under Romanos Diogenes, he became independent during the reign of Michael VII, ruling from Maraş to Malatya. He even captured Urfa and expanded his control up to the Euphrates. Although he sought independence, he remained cautious and reconnected with the Byzantines for safety. He also agreed to serve the Seljuks by submitting to their governor of Mosul, Sharaf al-Dawla Muslim, and therefore to Sultan Melikşah. Despite these alliances, a Turkish commander named Husrev raided areas around Urfa, defeating a Christian army. The founder of the Sultanate of Rum, Süleyman Shah, with his brothers Mansur, Alp Ilek, and Dolat, was likely active in the Urfa-Birachik region around 1073. These four brothers gained the support of Turkmen tribes fleeing from other Seljuk territories. Because of their noble lineage, the Turkmens saw them as leaders. Although each commanded his own group, two of them, probably Alp Ilek and Devlet, got involved in Syrian affairs and were defeated by Atsız Bey. They were then sent to Sultan Melikşah in 1075. In late 1074, when Emir Mahmud of the Mirdasid dynasty died, Süleyman Shah besieged Aleppo and then Antioch, which was under a Byzantine governor. He only took a small amount of goods from Aleppo, but forced Antioch to pay 20,000 gold coins in tribute. With Atsız gaining strength in Syria, Süleyman Shah and Mansur likely shifted their focus back to Anatolia. With Artuk Bey recalled, they began aiming for full control over the Turkmens in the region. Süleyman Shah entered Anatolia and likely captured Konya and the nearby Gevele castle around 1075. This marked the first step toward founding an independent Turkish state in Anatolia. Soon after, he took Iznik and made it his capital. This event marked the founding of the Sultanate of Rum in 1075. However, at first, this new state was still under the authority of the great Seljuk Empire. Soon after, Sultan Melikşah decided to act. He had been carefully watching the rise of the sons of Kutalmış in Anatolia. After his uncle Kavurt's rebellion and death, Melikşah followed a centralization policy. However, independent movements were growing in two regions, Syria and Anatolia. In Syria, when Atsız gained power, Melikşah sent his brother Tutush. Atsız was removed by Tutush, and the region came under Seljuk control. To take control of Anatolia, Melikshah sent Emir Porsuk. Porsuk killed Mansur in a duel or battle, but achieved little else. After Mansur's death, Süleyman Shah cooperated with the Byzantine Empire for a while. This Byzantine support may have helped limit Porsuk's success. By 1079 to 1080, Turkish conquests had reached the Marmara, Black Sea, and even the Aegean coasts. Meanwhile, Byzantium was weakened by internal rebellions, allowing Süleyman Shah to expand easily. In 1081, when Alexios Komnenos became emperor, Süleyman Shah had more freedom to act. Since there was no formal treaty between them, Turkish forces advanced all the way to the Bosporus. They set up checkpoints to collect tolls from ships. Emperor Alexios sent small naval raids to attack Turkish camps, forcing them to pull back. But Alexios had bigger problems in the Balkans with the Pechenegs and Normans, so he chose to make peace with Süleyman Shah. Thanks to this agreement, Süleyman Shah expanded his influence to areas near Constantinople and could focus on central and southeastern Anatolia. Süleyman Shah soon turned south. He besieged and captured Tarsus. The following year, he took Adana, Mesis, and Anazarba, almost all of the Cilicia region. This meant the Seljuks had taken over the western parts of the Armenian state that Philaretos had built between the Taurus Mountains and Urfa. Next, Süleyman Shah set his sights on Antioch, one of Syria's most important cities. But it was also desired by Seljuk vassal Sharaf al-Dawla Muslim, who had taken Aleppo and Melik Tutush. In the end, Süleyman Shah captured Antakya on December 12, 1084, and the citadel surrendered a month later on January 12, 1085. This conquest caused conflict with both Sharaf al-Dawla Muslim and Melik Tutush. In the first battle, Sharaf al-Dawla was defeated and killed. Süleyman Shah then marched toward Aleppo and besieged the city. With Antakya taken, Sharaf al-Dawla defeated, and Aleppo under siege, it became clear that a struggle between Süleyman Shah and the great Seljuk Empire had begun. The commander of Aleppo, Sharif Abu Ali Hassan, defended the city and sent letters to Melikshah and Tutush for help. While Süleyman Shah was attacking Aleppo, he heard that Tutush was approaching, supported by Artuk Bey. Tutush's army met Süleyman Shah's forces near Aleppo, at Ainusalem on June 5, 1086. The battle between the two Turkish armies was decided when Çubuk Bey and other Turkmens left Süleyman Shah and joined Tutush. Realizing he had lost, Süleyman Shah committed suicide. Before leaving for Antakya, Süleyman Shah had left a commander named Ebulkasım in charge of Nicaea, his capital. During the Antakya campaign, a Turkish leader named Karatekin captured Sinop on the Black Sea. But after Süleyman Shah's death, Emperor Alexios took advantage of the situation and reclaimed Black Sea cities. Alexios even convinced Melikshah's envoy Çavuş to switch sides. Çavuş then showed Melikshah's letter to Karatekin and persuaded him to leave Sinop. As a result, Sinop was returned to Byzantine control. News of Süleyman Shah's death caused the Turkish commanders he had appointed to act independently. The most powerful was Ebulkasım, who still ruled Iznik. Ambitious and skilled, Ebulkasım began raiding the Marmara coast. He also made his brother Ebulgazi governor of Kayseri and its surroundings. To bring Iznik under control, Melikshah sent a 50,000-strong army under Emir Porsuk. As Porsuk approached Iznik, Emperor Alexios contacted Ebulkasım and invited him to Constantinople. It seemed like Alexios wanted an alliance against Porsuk, but his real goal was to take Izmit from the Turks. Constantinople, the Byzantines managed to build a new fortress in Izmit. When construction was complete, Alexios gave Ebulkasım gifts and sent him back to Iznik. Upon returning and learning the truth, Ebulkasım had no choice but to accept the situation. especially since Porsuk had now reached Iznik, and Ebulkasim needed the emperor's help. Emir Porsuk besieged Iznik for 3 months. Ebulkasim, angry at the emperor's deceit, defended the city with his own forces. But eventually, he had to ask for help. At that time, Emperor Alexios was busy fighting the Pechenegs in the west. Though he couldn't send real military support, he feared that if Iznik fell, it couldn't be taken back. So he used another trick. He sent a small group of soldiers with imperial flags to Ebulkasim. This small Byzantine force likely entered the city by sea. When they climbed the walls and waved imperial banners, Porsuk thought the emperor himself had arrived and lifted the siege. Thus, Iznik was saved. Realizing they were too weak to continue, the Byzantine troops returned. After Porsuk's failure, Sultan Melikshah didn't give up on taking Iznik. He sent one of his trusted commanders, Emir Bozan. However, Bozan's attacks failed due to Ebulkasim's strong defense and Byzantine support. Bozan then moved his camp to the Lampe River near Ulubat. Ebulkasim now realized he couldn't act independently anymore. So he decided to go directly to Sultan Melikshah and asked to stay in Iznik as his official governor. He prepared valuable gifts and left his brother Ebulgazi in charge while he went to Isfahan. But Melikshah refused to meet him and told him to make peace with Bozan. After waiting a long time, Ebulkasim set off to find Bozan, but he was captured by a group of 200 soldiers sent by Bozan and was strangled with his own bowstring. While Bozan was heading to Iznik, Melikshah tried to form an alliance with the Byzantine emperor. He asked for one of the emperor's daughters for his son. Emperor Alexios sent an embassy, but secretly told them to delay and stall. However, before they arrived, they learned Melikshah had died, so they returned. In the early years of Melikshah's rule, a local ruler named Fazl III rebelled against his father and took control of Ganja and Divin. Melikshah wanted to make his loyalty official, so he gave the nearby regions of Derbent and Aran as land grants to one of his top commanders, Emir Savtekin. In 1075, Savtekin went there with a Turkish army. Fazl III didn't want to surrender, but after facing Savtekin's forces, he gave up Ganja and Aran. The Turks settled across the region. Savtekin became governor of Ganja, and Fazl III was given Estrabad in Gorgan as a land grant. Savtekin sent his deputy Ahmet as an envoy to Derbent to announce that the region now belonged to him, and that Friday sermons would be said in the name of the Sultan and Savtekin. Thus, the short rule of local Emir Maimun ended, and real Seljuk control began. Meanwhile, the ruler of Shirvan, Fariburz, gave up hope of taking Derbent and agreed to pay yearly taxes to the Seljuks. During this time, groups descended from the Khazars also came to Shirvan and submitted to the Seljuks. Savtekin settled them in a town called Katan. Later, Savtekin joined Muslim rulers of Divin and Dmanisi in a campaign against the Georgian king Georgi II. But they were defeated near Fartskis and had to retreat. This failure made Sultan Melikshah personally lead a campaign to Georgia. He invaded the Somkheti region, captured Shamshvilde, and took Liparit's son, Yoan, as prisoner. After reorganizing the Caucasus, he left reinforcements for Savtekin and returned. Savtekin attacked again with new forces, but was once again defeated by King Georgi II near Fartskis. So Melikshah sent another commander, Emir Ahmet, to the region. Ahmet defeated the Georgian king, captured Kars, and brought order to the area. Emirs like Abu Yaqub al-Saburi and their Turkmen troops also took control of areas like Shavshat, Ankara, Karthli, Ardanuch, Kutaisi, and nearby regions. The next year they moved into the Choru Valley and even captured Trabzon, but Byzantines later took it back. Afterward, both King Georgi and King Agsathan of Kakheti traveled to Isfahan and renewed their loyalty to Sultan Melikshah. Emir Savtekin remained in the region for a while. At the end of 1083, Melikshah appointed him Emir of the Pilgrimage and Governor of Kufa. When Savtekin came to Baghdad, he was welcomed by Caliph al-Muqtadi, given a robe of honor, and treated with great respect. After falling ill, he returned to Isfahan and died there. After Savtekin's death, Melikshah gave control of Aran to Yakuti's son, Qutb al-Din Ismail, who was also governor of Azerbaijan. At this time, the local ruler, Fazl III, took advantage of the power change and rebelled again. Melikshah responded by launching another campaign to the Caucasus in 1086. Ruled by Emir Abul Fazl Minucher, Shirvanshah Fariburz also pledged loyalty again and agreed to pay 70,000 gold coins yearly. Melikshah ordered Emir Bozan to conquer Ganja and punish Fazl III. After a hard siege, Bozan captured Ganja and took Fazl III prisoner. During this campaign, a Byzantine ambassador came to Sultan Melikshah to ask for peace. He brought many treasures, so much that they filled the treasuries and confused the accountants. Melikshah later advanced toward the Black Sea coast. At that time, local people complained about high taxes. Because of this, the Armenian Patriarch of Ani, Barseg, decided to go and speak directly to the Sultan. He also wanted to fix the problem of the Armenian Patriarchate, which had been divided into 4 parts because of Philaretos' actions. Patriarch Barseg went to Isfahan with a group of Armenian princes and priests. He gave Sultan Melikshah gifts, including 10,000 gold coins, silver, and fine fabrics. The Sultan welcomed him and accepted his requests. Melikshah gave orders to remove taxes from churches, monasteries, and religious leaders. He also issued official decrees to unite the Armenian Church under a single leadership. He gave the duty of carrying out these orders to Qutb al-Din Ismail, the governor of Azerbaijan. Ismail fulfilled the task well, so well that the Armenian historian Matthew of Edessa praised him as a good, merciful, and constructive man. The Karmatians were known as a large social and reformist movement in the Islamic world that promoted equality and justice. They were especially successful in attracting support from large farming communities. Later, they set up propaganda centers in places like Khorasan, Syria, and Yemen. In 899, they established an independent state in Al-Aqsa and began a long struggle against the Abbasid Caliphate. Because of this growing threat, Caliph al-Muqtadi Billah asked the great Seljuk Sultan Melikshah for help against the rebellious Karmatians in Al-Ahsa. In response, Melikshah assigned a court official named Hajib Kuchkine to lead the campaign. Kuchkine contacted Yahya bin Abbas, the ruler of Qatif and Bahrain Island at the time, through his aide Ibn al-Zarrad, and received his promise of support for the expedition. Kuchkine also gained help from Sa'd al-Dawla Gevarain, the Seljuk military governor in Baghdad, who had strong influence over the Arab tribes, and from a well-known Arab leader, Ibn Muharish. Kuchkine traveled from Isfahan to Basra, where he met Ibn Muharish's representative, Gudafe al-Badawi, and Ibn al-Zarrad. According to their agreement, any loot taken during the campaign would be divided, 1 share each to the Caliph and the Sultan, 1 share each to Vizier Nizam al-Mulk and Sa'd al-Dawla Gevarain, and the remaining 8 shares would go equally to Kuchkine and Ibn Muharish's forces. After Gevarain arrived in Basra, as agreed, Kuchkine, Ibn al-Zarrad, and Gudafe al-Badawi set off toward Qatif, with a small army equipped with catapults and weapons. Along the way, they were attacked by the Kais and Kubash tribes. Kuchkin's forces won the battle and then returned the captured women and children to their tribes without conditions. This act impressed the tribal leaders, who thanked Kuchkine with valuable gifts and offered to join him in the fight against the Karmatians, sending 500 cavalrymen to support him. With his army growing stronger, Kuchkine sent a message to Yahya bin Abbas, telling him they were approaching Qatif to fight the Karmatians. Yahya did not respond well. He sent Kuchkine a harsh message. According to our earlier agreement through Ibn al-Zarrad, the Sultan was only supposed to send me 200 soldiers under my command. I didn't want a separate army with its own leader. Your actions, especially fighting the Khois and Kubash tribes, have damaged trust and harmed my honor. Now you are like a lion trapped in a forest. You cannot stay and you cannot return. If you give me control of the army, I'll make sure you get back to Basra safely. I'll fight the Karmatians myself, take Al-Ahsa, read the Friday prayer in the name of the Caliph and Sultan, and pay taxes. But if you insist on leading, the desert is open. Go wherever you want. Yahya had clearly broken the earlier agreement. Even though several letters were exchanged, no compromise was reached. War broke out, and Yahya was defeated. However, he got revenge by working with the Kais and Kubash tribes to steal all the supplies and goods of Kuchkine's army. Then, he launched a surprise attack, forcing Kuchkine's weakened forces to retreat into the desert. In the end, Kuchkine's army was scattered, and the remaining soldiers returned to Basra in poor condition. The campaign against the Karmatians failed, not because of the Karmatians themselves, but due to Yahya bin Abbas's betrayal and conflict with Kuchkine. Shortly after this failure, Abdullah bin Ali, the ruler of Uyun, and a successful opponent of the Karmatians, sent a message to Sultan Melikshah through Vizier Nizam al-Mulk. He promised to continue fighting the Karmatians if he received help, and would read the Friday prayer in the name of the Caliph and Sultan in Al-Ahsa and Bahrain. Sultan Melikshah welcomed this proposal. Wanting to end the Karmatian threat once and for all, he appointed Artuk Bey, the Seljuk governor of Hulwan, to lead a second campaign. Artuk Bey, along with his brother Alpkush and 7,000 Turkmen cavalry, left Hulwan and came to Basra to gather supplies, especially camels and food, for the desert campaign. When Artuk Bey was not allowed into the city of Basra, he reacted strongly. He said, "I didn't come to fight you, only to get food and camels. If you don't give them, I will take them by force." After this, the leaders of Basra agreed to provide most of his needs. In January 1077, Artuk Bey headed towards Qatif, which was then ruled by Yahya bin Abbas, who had previously fought against the Seljuk. Artuk Bey captured Qatif without resistance and marched to Al-Ahsa with Abdullah bin Ali to fight the Karmatians. The Karmatians were trapped in their fortress and began to suffer from a severe lack of food and water. Eventually, they asked for peace. They agreed to these conditions from Artuk Bey. Stop reading the Shiite sermon in the name of the Fatimids, and instead read the Sunni sermon for the Abbasid Caliph and Seljuk Sultan. Pay 10,000 gold coins as war compensation. Temporarily lift the siege to collect the money. Give 13 important men as hostages to guarantee their promises. After accepting the hostages, Artuk Bey lifted the siege and even went to Bahrain Island, bringing the Karmatians there and Yahya bin Abbas under control. But in Al-Ahsa, the Karmatians broke the agreement. They brought hidden food from nearby gardens into their fortress and prepared to resist again. In response, Artuk Bey restarted the siege, took control of the nearby villages, and blocked all food supplies. The Karmatians were trapped and starving. They were close to surrendering. However, the heat made many Turkmen soldiers restless, and they wanted to return home. So Artuk Bey left 200 horsemen under his brother Alpkush's command and said he would return later to completely defeat the Karmatians. He then went to Basra, and from there to Baghdad. In Baghdad, Artuk Bey appeared before Caliph al-Qaim and reported on the campaign. The caliph was pleased and issued a royal decree in his honor. Artuk Bey was awarded the titles Rukn al-Din and Zahir al-Din, along with gifts like robes of honor, a decorated horse, and musk. After that, Artuk Bey went back to Asa via Wasit and Basra. While he was away, the Karmatians attacked again with help from the Ezd and Amir Rebia tribes. In a battle at Bain al-Rahbatain, Alpkush and Abdullah bin Ali defeated them, forcing the Karmatians to leave their fortress. Though victorious, Abdullah didn't allow Alpkush or his men into the fortress and treated the defeated Arabs kindly, releasing the captives. But soon, the tribes were provoked again by the Karmatians. In a second battle in 1077, between the Muhallam and Sulisil rivers, Alpkush used a tactic with wild camels and loud drums to scare the enemy. They won again, capturing 4,000 horses and camels, and many women and children. Despite this success, Abdullah bin Ali turned against Alpkush. He had him followed, arrested, and killed. Abdullah then took full control of Asa and Bahrain. When Artuk Bey heard this in Basra, he quickly returned with 2,000 Turkmen horsemen and besieged Abdullah, who had locked himself in the fortress. Many Arab leaders, angry with Abdullah, joined Artuk Bey. During the long siege, Artuk Bey told Abdullah, "If you give me your oldest son Ali as compensation for my brother Alpkush's blood, I will stop the siege." Abdullah refused, but offered double payment instead. No agreement was reached. But when Ali heard about this, he secretly left the fortress and gave himself up, saying, "I sacrifice myself for my people." With this, the conflict ended. The Karmatians were finally defeated, and their rebellion ended. Artuk Bey left Asa and returned to Hulwan through Basra, informing Sultan Melikshah of the full success of his second campaign. During the 11th century, the southeastern Anatolia region, especially Diyarbakir, Amid, was ruled by a Muslim dynasty called the Marwanids. They were under the control of the great Seljuk Empire since the time of Sultan Tugril Bey. In 1080, Nasruddin Mansur became the ruler of the Marwanids. He removed the successful Muslim vizier Abu Tahir Anbari and replaced him with a Christian doctor named Abu Salim. Abu Salim's cooperation with Sharaf al-Dawla Muslim, who wanted to build an independent Arab state in northern Iraq, made many Muslims in the region very unhappy. Later, Fakhr al-Dawla Muhammad bin Juhair, a former vizier of the Marwanids, was invited to Baghdad to serve as vizier to the Abbasid Caliph. His son, Amid al-Dawla Mansur, was married to the daughter of the famous Seljuk vizier Nizam al-Mulk. Due to sectarian conflicts in Baghdad, the Juhair family lost power for a while. But in 1083, Fakhr al-Dawla went to the Seljuk court in Isfahan. He told Sultan Melikshah that the Marwanid lands were rich and should be added to Seljuk territory. Nizam al-Mulk supported this idea, and the Sultan also wanted to control this region to balance power between the Turkish and Syrian Seljuks. The Sultan agreed and made Fakhr al-Dawla governor of Diyarbakir and nearby areas in June 1083. He gave him royal robes, a war drum to be Mansur prepared for defense. He asked Sharaf al-Dawla Muslim, ruler of Mosul and Aleppo, for help. In return, he offered cities like Amid and Kizre. Sharaf al-Dawla agreed and tried to stop the Seljuk army by speaking with Sultan Melikshah, but he failed. He marched to Amid and camped there. Soon, Fakhr al-Dawla, Artuk Bey, and Chubuk Bey arrived with the Seljuk army in July 1084. When Sharaf al-Dawla saw the large army and the Sultan's flag, he realized he couldn't win. He sent a message saying, "Both Mansur and I are loyal to the Sultan. Why are we fighting?" Fakhr al-Dawla didn't want Arab Muslims to be harmed by Turks, so he made a peace deal. According to the deal, the Seljuk army would pull back, and Sharaf al-Dawla would return to his lands. However, Artuk Bey said, "I cannot pull back the Sultan's flag," and refused the deal. The Turkmen soldiers were also unhappy. They wanted war and spoils. Under Chubuk Bey, they attacked Sharaf al-Dawla's camp. Sharaf al-Dawla and Mansur barely escaped inside Diyarbakar's walls. The rest of their army ran away. The Turkmen took many prisoners, animals, and weapons, and sold them outside the city walls. They even burned 10,000 spears under their cooking pots. These events caused a rift between Fakhr al-Dawla and Artuk Bey. Fakhr accused Artuk of planning the attack. He told Artuk to send the loot and money to the Sultan. Artuk refused, saying, "I'm a warrior. Keeping prisoners or handing over loot is not our tradition. We sell or free them." Fakhr responded by giving command of the army to Altuntak, pushing Artuk to the background. This made relations worse. Seeing the tension, Sharaf al-Dawla offered Artuk Bey money and safe passage. Artuk accepted and withdrew to Sinjar in August 1084. Sharaf al-Dawla went to Raqqa and sent the promised goods to Artuk. Meanwhile, Mansur escaped to Silvan and prepared defenses. Fakhr al-Dawla sent his son, Zaim al-Dawla Abul Qasim, to besiege Diyarbakir, while he, Altuntak, Ayaz, Turchek, and Humartash attacked Mayafarikin. Both cities had strong walls, making the siege long and difficult. Meanwhile, Mardin was also under siege, and the cities of Sirt and Erzen soon surrendered to the Seljuks. The southeast Anatolia region, especially around Amid, had been controlled since Sultan Tughrul's time by the Marwanid dynasty, a Muslim ruling family under Seljuk overlordship. In 1080, Nasr al-Din Mansur became head of the Marwanids, removed his Muslim vizier Abu Tahir, and appointed a Christian doctor named Abu Salim instead. This caused resentment among Muslims, especially since Abu Salim cooperated with Sharaf al-Dawla Muslim, an Arab leader aiming for a separate state in northern Iraq. Fakhr al-Dawla Muhammad bin Juhair, a former Marwanid vizier, later became an official in Baghdad. In 1083, he proposed to Sultan Melikshah that the wealthy region be integrated into the Seljuk Empire, a suggestion supported by Nizam al-Mulk. By June 1083, Sultan Melikshah appointed Fakhr al-Dawla as governor of Diyarbakir. He was allowed to lead Friday prayers in his name, mint coins, and collect taxes, under the condition of loyalty and yearly tribute equal to the Marwanids' taxes. Prominent commanders, including Sa'd al-Dawla Jawharain, Altuntak, Hamartash, Turchek, Çokurmuş, Sandak, Dilmacholu Mehmet, Chubuk, Ayaz, Artuk Bey, and Arab leaders like Baha al-Din Mansur joined him in the campaign. Marwanid ruler Mansur allied with Sharaf al-Dawla, who offered to help. They camped at Diyarbakir. By July 1084, the combined Seljuk force led by Fakhr al-Dawla, Artuk Bey, and Chubuk Bey arrived. Seeing the Sultan's banner, Sharaf al-Dawla sent a message asking, "Why are we fighting when we're all loyal to the Sultan?" Fakhr al-Dawla agreed to peace, but Artuk Bey disagreed, and the Turkmen troops, eager for spoils, attacked anyway. They routed Sharaf's forces outside the city, capturing many goods and weapons. The Marwanid camp was looted, and their spears were burnt. This strained relations between Fakhr al-Dawla and Artuk Bey. Fakhr wanted the loot sent to the Sultan, but Artuk refused saying prisoners would be freed or sold. Fakhr then gave command of the siege to Altuntak. Sharaf offered Artuk money to withdraw, which Artuk accepted and retreated to Sinjar in August 1084. Sharaf moved to Raqqa, sending the promised wealth to Artuk. Mansur retreated to Mayafarikin to defend it. Fakhr al-Dawla besieged Diyarbakir with his son, while he and Altuntak, Ayaz, Turchek, and Humartash besieged Mayafarikin. By the end of 1084, Mardin was also under siege, while Sirt and Erzin surrendered to the Seljuks. Sultan Melik Shah ordered Qasim al-Dawla Aksungur, the military governor of Baghdad, and Humartakin, his chamberlain, to join Fakhr al-Dawla. He also commanded Artuk Bey, who was in Sinjar and wanted to go to Isfahan, to join the army with his Turkmen forces. Artuk obeyed and went to Mosul, where he met Amid al-Dawla. The Seljuk army began to siege Mosul. Later, Melik Shah himself joined the campaign and set up camp near Bawazij. However, at the same time, the Sultan's brother Tekish rebelled again in Khorasan. This forced Melik Shah to change his focus. He sent a letter through Vizier Nizam al-Mulk to Sharaf al-Dawla Muslim, asking him to come and ask for forgiveness. He also sent Nizam's son, Muayyid al-Mulk, to assure Muslim he would not be harmed. Sharaf al-Dawla, in a desperate situation, was surprised by this offer. He borrowed money, bought gifts, and appeared before the Sultan at Bawazij. Melik Shah forgave him and restored his lands. Soon after, Suleiman Shah, the Seljuk ruler of Anatolia, conquered Antioch and threatened Muslims' territories. Feeling too weak to fight alone, Muslims sought allies and contacted Artuk Bey. Artuk, still angry with Melik Shah over past events in Diyarbakir, decided to leave Seljuk service and joined Tutus, ruler of Syria. Tutus made him governor of Jerusalem. Artuk Bey and Sharaf al-Dawla then formed an alliance, agreeing on rejecting Melik Shah's authority, recognizing Tutus as the supreme sultan, cutting ties with the Sunni Abbasid Caliph, and aligning with the Shiite Fatimid Caliph. This alliance was presented to Tutus. Muslim's uncle Muqbil bin Badran was sent to Egypt to seek support from the Fatimids. The Fatimids agreed and sent an envoy to Damascus. Artuk and Muslim were invited, but before plans could proceed, Sharaf al-Dawla Muslim was killed in battle against Suleiman Shah. With the alliance broken, Artuk Bey did not go to Damascus. Meanwhile, Suleiman Shah marched on Aleppo and besieged it. The city was ruled by Abu Ali Hassan and the citadel by Salim bin Malik. Suleiman lifted the siege when al-Hutayti said he would only surrender the city to Sultan Melik Shah. In May 1086, Suleiman returned to besiege Aleppo again, but no help came from Melik Shah. Al-Hutayti instead invited Tutus to take the city. Tutus, along with Artuk Bey, marched on Aleppo. Artuk Bey had previously rejected gifts and honors from Melik Shah, still upset over past mistreatment. Melik Shah sent commanders Jauharayan, Karatekin, and Anushtekin to monitor and possibly punish Artuk Bey. They offered to cooperate, but Artuk refused, saying he wouldn't allow Suleiman Shah to take lands that belonged to Melik Shah. This showed that Artuk was also at odds with Suleiman Shah. The armies of Tutus and Suleiman Shah met near Aleppo, at a place called Ain al-Sailam. Thanks to Artuk Bey's leadership, Tutus' forces won, and Suleiman Shah, in despair, took his own life by stabbing himself. Tutus then demanded Aleppo's surrender. However, al-Hutayti broke his promise and refused, claiming Melik Shah had arrived. Tutus besieged the city. A soldier named Ibn al-Rawi, who disliked al-Hutayti, helped Tutus capture the city. Even after the city fell, Salim bin Malik, the citadel commander, resisted. honoring Sharaf al-Dawla's will that the citadel should only be given to Melikshah. Tutus laid siege to the citadel for 17 days, but failed. When he heard Melikshah was approaching Aleppo, he lifted the siege and returned to Damascus. Sharif al-Hutayti, who controlled Aleppo, contacted Sultan Melikshah and offered to surrender the city. In response, the Sultan began preparations for a campaign in northern Syria to restore peace. According to one story, during these preparations, Sulayman Shah sent an envoy to Isfahan to request the administration of Antioch and Aleppo. Melikshah agreed, and the envoy and Sulayman Shah set out together. However, after news arrived that Sulayman Shah had been killed in battle with Tutus, the envoy returned to inform the Sultan. Melikshah was deeply saddened by Sulayman Shah's death and sent a harsh letter to Tutus. He then set out from Isfahan towards Aleppo with top commanders like Porsuk, Bozan, and Qasim al-Dawla Aksungur. Along the way, he passed through Mosul and Haran, granting Haran and its surroundings to Abu Abdullah Muhammad, the son of Sharaf al-Dawla Muslim, and married his sister Zulayha Hatun to him. Meanwhile, after Seljuks conquered Diyarbakir on April 30th, 1085, a local ruler named Philaretos realized he might be next. He left Urfa under a Byzantine deputy named Parakamonos and went to meet Melikshah, bringing gold, silver, fine horses, and other gifts. However, after his departure, the oppressed people of Urfa rose in rebellion, led by his son Barsama, killed the deputy, and declared Barsama their leader. After Melikshah left Mosul, the people of Urfa sent a delegation offering to surrender. The Sultan sent a judge as his representative, but the judge's cruelty and theft caused the people to revolt again. They imprisoned the judge and expelled him. Melikshah then sent Emir Bozan with a large force to Urfa. Bozan besieged the city for 3 months. With no outside help, the people turned against Barsama, who tried to flee and jumped from the wall, but he was injured and died shortly after. Finally, a Christian merchant named Ibn Qudama handed the city over to Bozan. Urfa came under Turkish control. However, Bozan executed 12 wealthy citizens due to rumors and suspicion. When the Sultan learned this, he refused to meet Philaretos. Desperate, Philaretos converted to Islam. Melikshah then appointed him as governor of Marash. Bozan was also rewarded by being made governor of Urfa. Turkish rule in the city had officially begun. Bozan appointed Salar Hulu as military commander of the city and had a minaret built on an old mosque from the early Islamic conquests. Melikshah then moved toward Jabar Castle, a key fortress on the Euphrates. He captured it in 1 day and 1 night. The ruling Kusher family was executed for robbing travelers. After also capturing Manbij, he marched toward Aleppo. Upon hearing of the Sultan's approach, Tutus ended his siege of Aleppo's inner fortress and retreated to Damascus with Artuk Bey. Artuk encouraged Tutus to fight the Sultan, saying, "His army is tired and weak. Now is the perfect time to attack." But Tutus refused, saying, "I will not betray my brother who protected me. That would shame me." He then continued toward Damascus. When Melikshah reached Aleppo, he was greeted by the city's leaders, including Salim bin Malik, and they surrendered the city peacefully. The Sultan thanked Salim and gave him Jabar Castle and nearby districts as a reward. In another version, Salim initially refused to surrender, so the Sultan ordered all his archers to shoot arrows at once. The sky darkened with arrows, forcing Salim to give up. Melikshah appointed Aksungur as governor of Aleppo and Nuhet Turki as fortress commander. Meanwhile, al-Hutayti also came to show loyalty and asked for his old post back. But the people, angry over his past cruelty, opposed it. The Sultan sent him to Diyarbakir, where he lived in poverty and eventually died in misery. During Melikshah's stay in Aleppo, Arab rulers in Syria, including Tutus, came to show their loyalty. Tutus asked, "Should I stay where I am or move elsewhere?" Melikshah told him to stay, and this ended the tension between the two brothers caused by Suleiman Shah's death. The ruler of Shaizar, Nasr bin Ali, sent a special envoy to Sultan Melikshah to declare his loyalty. He handed over the cities of Shaizar, Latakia, Kafartab, and Apamea. The Sultan was pleased and made peace with him, allowing him to keep control of Shaizar. The emir of Homs, Khalaf bin Mulaib, also came with a horse and gifts to show his loyalty. Melikshah confirmed him as ruler of Homs, but ordered him not to support Tutus militarily anymore. After his father's death, Saif al-Dawla Shadaka became the ruler of Hilla. He also came to Aleppo to declare his loyalty, and the Sultan gave him back his father's lands. Then Melikshah traveled to Antioch, which had been conquered by Suleiman Shah. Suleiman's vizier, Hassan bin Tahir, met the Sultan and submitted to him. He also requested protection for Suleiman's children. Melikshah entered Antioch and appointed Yagisian with some troops as the city commander, and made Hassan responsible for the administrative affairs. After that, the Sultan went to Samandağ and reached the Mediterranean Sea. Seeing the sea, he thanked God that his empire had expanded even more than his father, Alp Arslan's. Excited, he rode his horse into the sea, dipped his sword into the water 3 times, and said, "God has given me control from the eastern sea to the western sea." He then prayed and thanked God. He told his men to collect sand from the shore, which was later brought to his father's tomb in Merv. At the tomb, he said, "O my father Alp Arslan, rejoice. The son you left as a child has now conquered the world." From Samandağ, the Sultan returned to Antioch, took Suleiman Shah's wife and children with him, and traveled to Aleppo. After celebrating the Eid al-Fitr in Aleppo, he went to Baghdad. With this journey, the troubles in northern Syria ended, and the region came under full Seljuk control. The activities of Tutus, the ruler of Seljuk Syria, were also brought under control. As Melikshah approached Baghdad, he stopped at Akarkuf, west of the city. He was welcomed by the caliph's vizier, Abu Shuja, soldiers, and crowds of people. The Abbasid Caliph al-Muqtadi respected Melikshah greatly and sent food and drinks. A feast was held, and 2,000 sheep were cooked. After the Sultan finished eating, the remaining food was given to the people. The vizier also gave the Sultan a special prayer bead made from precious stones. On March 12, 1087, Melikshah entered Baghdad for the first time. Everyone came out to see him: men, women, children, and elders. The people praised him and prayed for him. The Sultan greeted them and went to the Caliph's palace. His vizier, Nizam al-Mulk, set up his tent outside the city, and no soldiers entered people's homes, keeping the city peaceful. Complaints were taken seriously, and the Sultan helped the people. The people of Baghdad had never seen such a well-disciplined army. Prices stayed low, and there was abundance. 3 days after his arrival, the Sultan played chavgan and ball games. The Caliph sent him purebred Arab horses, and their friendship grew. The Sultan also gave the Caliph gifts. On March 23rd, Melikshah and Nizam al-Mulk visited the tombs of Imam Ali and Imam Hussein in Kufa, gave charity, and then went hunting in the desert. He reportedly hunted 4,000 to 10,000 deer. From the antlers, a signal tower was built in Subi, and then he returned to Baghdad. On March 15th, the Caliph's mother and aunt visited the Sultan's wife, Turkin Hatun, who treated them with great respect. The Caliph then sent a man named Zafar to invite the Sultan to his court. Since the Sultan was outside the city, he traveled by boat on the Tigris River. As his boat passed, people cheered him. When he arrived at Bab al-Gharabat, he mounted a horse and went to the palace. The Caliph welcomed him and offered him a seat. The Sultan hesitated at first, but sat down after the Caliph insisted. Nizam al-Mulk introduced 40 emirs to the Caliph, including the Sultan's uncle Atakin. The Caliph then ordered the Sultan to be dressed in 7 ceremonial robes, placed a diamond crown on his head, a necklace, gold bracelets, and a jeweled belt on his waist. The Sultan also received 2 swords as symbols of his authority over East and West. The vizier then made a speech praising the Sultan's power and role in supporting Islam. Nizam al-Mulk and the guests also received gifts. The Sultan asked to kiss the Caliph's hand, but instead, the Caliph gave him his ring, which the Sultan kissed respectfully. Lastly, the Caliph gave the Sultan 3 royal banners, previously used by commanders. After the ceremony, the Sultan greeted the Caliph and left the palace. His ceremonial robe was held by Emir Gümüştekin el-Kandar on his right and Gevreyan on his left. As Melikshah walked out, the Caliph personally scattered gold and silver coins around him. The crowd followed, praying, "May your success and power be everlasting." The Caliph had arranged a golden throne for the Sultan in the guest palace. When Melikshah sat on the throne, the Caliph sent him more gifts. Afterward, Nizamul Mulk went to the Nizamiya Madrasa to attend a hadith lesson and converse with Baghdad scholars. He had them write down certain hadiths and then gave robes and gifts to scholars and jurists based on their status. He also reviewed books in the madrasa library. Nizamul Mulk believed that religious authority and political authority should remain united. This was the foundation of stable governance. He worked hard to bring them closer. Thanks to his efforts, Melikshah and Caliph al-Muqtadi became related by marriage. The Caliph requested the Sultan's eldest daughter as his wife. Nizamul Mulk and Farudevle went to Terken Hatun to propose the marriage of their daughter Memelek to the Caliph. Terken Hatun replied, "The Sultans of Ghazni and the Karakhanids have offered 400,000 dinars for my daughter. If the Caliph pays that, he is more worthy than they are." Then Hatice Arslan Hatun, the late Caliph Qaim's wife and daughter of Chara Bey, said, "Marrying the Caliph would be an honor for your daughter. Money shouldn't be asked." Finally, Terken Hatun accepted the Caliph's proposal, but insisted on a dowry of 50,000 dinars, and that the Caliph not marry another woman. This was accepted, and Melikshah agreed. Farudevle returned to Baghdad. While in Baghdad, the wedding date was set. Emir Bozan and Gevrayan were sent from Isfahan to accompany Terken Hatun as she brought Memelek to Baghdad. The bride's dowry included 130 camels and 74 mules, draped in silk and jingling with gold and silver. The mules carried chests filled with priceless jewelry. The procession included 33 richly saddled horses, and in front went a large cradle. People scattered gold and fine cloth over the caravan. The Caliph al-Vizier Abu Shuja led a retinue of 300 torch and lantern bearers to welcome Terken Hatun. He announced, "Our master, the commander of the faithful, requests you honor the palace." Terken Hatun entered, attended by Nizamul Mulk and other dignitaries. Nobles' wives came in groups, holding lanterns. Mehmelek Hatun arrived in a jeweled palanquin, surrounded by 200 beautiful Turkish attendants on horseback. She was taken into the palace. That night, Baghdad was illuminated and beautifully decorated. People celebrated until dawn. On May 8, 1087, Baghdad experienced one of its grandest nights in history. The next day, the caliph held a magnificent feast and invited the emirs. It said that 40,000 batmans of sugar were consumed. The caliph awarded robes to the emirs and commanders and sent robes to Turkan Hatun and other women. Notably, Melikshah himself did not attend. He had gone hunting and returned after the celebration. At the end of May, Sultan Melikshah departed Baghdad with Nizam-ul-Mulk to return to Isfahan. Vizier Abu Shuja escorted them to Nehrawan. That same year, Melikshah and Turkan Hatun had a son named Mahmud. In November, the Sultan wrote to the Caliph requesting that his son Ahmad be named heir, and Friday prayers were said in his name, gold coins were distributed, and alms given. Ahmad was officially made prince and heir. Sadly, Ahmad died before his father in Merv, around 1088 or 1089. Baghdad mourned with a 7-day period of grief. Nobody rode horses, and women wailed in the streets. Meanwhile, Melikshah's brother Togrul Tekish, ruling in Balkh and Tukharistan, visited the Sultan in Herat as an act of loyalty. Melikshah gave him robes and returned him to Balkh. Melikshah then inspected his army in Rey, where he dismissed 7,000 Turks dressed as Armenians. Nizam-ul-Mulk warned, "They have no trade or craft outside war. If dismissed, one may declare himself sultan and cost us more to control." Melikshah ignored the warning and soon regretted it. These dismissed Armenians fled to Tekish in Vasench. With their support, Tekish grew stronger and likely began plotting to claim the throne. In 1081–82, he captured Marvrud, Shahjan, and Termez, aiming to take Nishapur and control Khorasan. When news of the rebellion reached Melikshah, he acted swiftly and entered Nishapur ahead of Tekish. Tekish halted his advance and retreated to Termez, where Melikshah besieged him. Realizing he could not win, Tekish released his prisoners, begged forgiveness, and surrendered. The Sultan pardoned him and left Termez. However, in 1084–85, Tekish rebelled again, capturing Marvrud and Shahjan with support. Seraz was under Mustaha bin Yahya al-Turkmani, but Tekish and his forces besieged it as well. When Seraz was about to fall, Nizam al-Mulk's men sent a fake letter to Masut, making it look like it came from a Seljuk commander. The letter said, "We are coming from Rey. Hold the castle. We will attack the enemy at night." They sent the letter to Tekish's side using a spy. When the spy was caught and beaten, he confessed and said, "Sultan Melikshah is coming." Tekish and his men believed the letter and panicked. They left their tents and supplies behind and quickly ran away from Seraz. Tekish tried to enter Merv, but the people shut the gates and refused him. So he went to the fortress of Venek. After these events, Sultan Melikshah marched from Mosul with commanders like Artuk, Bozan, Porsuk, Kumach, and Ayaz. He first reached Rey, then Nishapur. Bozan's advanced troops arrived in Seraz and joined with Mesut bin Yahiz's forces. Together, they followed Tekish. Finally, on October 2, 1085, Tekish was forced out of Venek fortress. His eyes were blinded, and he was sent to Firuzku fortress in Damaghan. He stayed there as a prisoner until he died. Melikshah removed his brother, who had been a problem during the western campaigns, and appointed his son Ahmed to rule over Tekish's former lands. One example of Melikshah's justice happened during Tekish's first rebellion. While traveling to stop the rebellion, Melikshah visited the tomb of Ali bin Musa in Tus. After leaving, he asked Nizam al-Mulk how he prayed. Nizam said he prayed for the Sultan's victory, but Melikshah said, "I didn't pray like that. I asked God to give victory to the one who is better for the Muslims and more useful for the people." After the Battle of Dandanakan, the Seljuk leaders held a big council in Merv. They divided their lands according to old Turkic tradition. Musa İnanç Yabgu was given the Sistan region. He captured Herat with 5,000 horsemen and settled there. Later, Ertaş, the brother of Ibrahim İnal, also went to Sistan in November 1040 and took control of the area. A sermon was read in the name of Musa Yabgu. After Tugrul Bey died in 1063, Musa Yabgu joined the struggle for the throne, but was caught in Herat and brought to Alp Arslan. The Sultan treated his uncle well and kept him with him. After Musa, his son Kara Arslan Bori ruled Sistan. A loyal emir named Abulfazl governed the area until his death in 1073. Abulfazl's son, Baha al-Dawla Tahir, became emir, but some nobles opposed him. In May 1075, Emir Bedreddin Abulabas attacked and captured some places, but couldn't defeat Tahir. After 8 months, peace was made through Seljuk mediation. Later, Abulabas resumed fighting and captured more areas. In 1088, the death of another local ruler caused more conflict. Abulabas besieged Tahir in Zerents, but failed and retreated. Later, in February 1088, he returned with new forces and took Zerents. Tahir tried to escape, but was caught and killed on March 3, 1088. Soon after, Abulabas attacked the fortress of Ni. Emir Mamun resisted, and peace was made in October 1088. Abulabas later visited Sultan Melikşah and stayed more than 6 months. He returned in mid-1089 with official permission to rule, but he died in February 1090. After his death, Baha al-Dawla Khalaf became emir. He went to Khorasan to get a decree from the Sultan, but failed due to a war. Meanwhile, a new emir, Abu Mansur, was declared in Sistan. The two sides made peace in February 1091, but Baha al-Dawla broke it and attacked again. After fierce battles, he won and killed Abu Mansur in December 1091. Still, the fighting didn't end. Emir Muayyad attacked and forced Baha al-Dawla to leave Zerents, taking control himself. During this time, Sultan Melikşah sent Emir Kizil Sarık to fight the Ismailis in Kuhistan. With his help, Baha al-Dawla attacked another fortress. These conflicts continued until the Sultan's death. One of the saddest moments in Melikşah's life was the death of his son, Davud, the child of Turken Hatun. Davud died on May 12, 1082, in Isfahan. The Sultan was deeply affected. He tried to kill himself several times. The officials stopped him, but they couldn't even take the child's body to wash it for burial. The body started to smell before they could separate the Sultan from it. After that, they washed and buried the child. The people of Isfahan joined in mourning. Women, servants, and nobles cried and loosened their hair in sadness. Horses were dressed in black, with tails and manes cut, and saddles placed backward, an old Turkic mourning tradition. The whole city mourned for 7 days. In Baghdad, the caliph's vizier accepted condolences on behalf of the Sultan. The Western Karakhanid ruler Ahmad bin Khidr Khan became king at a very young age. Because he lacked experience, he couldn't rule well. He treated the people badly and often took their property. In the end, the people secretly wrote a letter to Sultan Melikşah and asked for help. At the same time, a rich religious scholar named Abu Tahir bin Aliyek was afraid of Ahmad Khan. He left the country saying he was going for trade and pilgrimage and went to Isfahan to meet Melikşah. There, he complained about Ahmad Khan and encouraged the Seljuk Sultan to take over Karakhanid lands. Melikşah, who wanted to expand his rule, saw this as a good opportunity. He began his campaign to take Transoxiana. When he arrived in Khorasan, he gathered soldiers from many cities. With this large army, he crossed the Amu Darya River. During the crossing, Vizier Nizam al-Mulk ordered that a fee be collected from Antakya to show the Sultan's power. The boatmen protested, saying they were poor, and that anyone who traveled from there to Antakya would grow old by the time they returned. Melik-Shah was upset and said, "Isn't the money from this land enough?" Nizam al-Mulk explained that this was not about money, but to show the greatness of the Sultan's rule. Melik-Shah then marched on Bukhara and captured it and the nearby areas. After that, he moved to Samarkand and besieged the city. Ahmad Khan had prepared the defenses and placed trusted commanders on the towers. But the commander of one tower had a son who was captured by the Seljuks. They threatened to kill the son unless the father surrendered, so he gave up the tower. When Seljuk soldiers climbed the walls, Ahmad Khan fled and hid in a local house. Soon, Seljuk soldiers entered Samarkand. When they found Ahmad Khan, he was brought to Melik-Shah. He showed his loyalty by placing the royal cloak, Gashia, on his shoulder and walking to the Sultan's throne. Then he was taken to Isfahan. This event marked the end of the Western Karakhanids' independence as they became part of the Seljuk Empire. Melik-Shah appointed Abu Tahir Khwarazmi as the governor of Samarkand. He then marched towards the eastern Karakhanid lands, going as far as Kashgar and Uzgend. There, he sent envoys to the eastern Karakhanid ruler, Hassan bin Suleiman, asking for the khutbah and coins to be issued in his name. Hassan agreed and showed loyalty. Melik-Shah treated him well and let him stay in power. The Seljuks also advanced as far as Taraz and took control of its ruler. After taking over the eastern Karakhanid lands, Melik-Shah returned to Isfahan. However, Governor Abu Tahir in Samarkand soon had problems with the local people and Chigil soldiers. He left and went to Khwarezm. The Chigil commander Ayn al-Dawla, afraid of Melik-Shah's reaction, looked for allies. He invited Yaqub Tegin, brother of Hassan and ruler of Atbashi, to Samarkand. But Yaqub and Ayn al-Dawla didn't get along. Yaqub turned the people against Ayn al-Dawla, and a fatwa was given. Ayn al-Dawla was executed. When Melik-Shah heard about this, he marched again to Samarkand in late 1090. As he reached Bukhara, Yaqub, without the support of the Chigil soldiers, fled through Fergana to Atbashi. Melik-Shah captured Samarkand again and went to Uzgend, sending soldiers everywhere to find Yaqub. He also sent a letter to Hassan, asking him to hand over his brother Yaqub. Meanwhile, Yaqub, now facing a rebellion from his own soldiers, had no choice but to ask for help from Hassan. Melik-Shah again requested Hassan to surrender Yaqub. Finally, Hassan agreed to send Yaqub to Melik-Shah. He sent his son, a group of guards, and many gifts. Hassan also told his son to blind Yaqub before handing him over, but they didn't do it. Instead, they let Yaqub go because a new problem started. Tughrul bin Inal, another Karakhanid, rebelled, captured Kashgar, looted it, and imprisoned Hassan. Melik-Shah realized it was hard to fight two rebels at once, so he chose to make peace with one to control the other. He sent his official Taj al-Mulk Abul Ghanaim to deal with this. Taj al-Mulk created peace between Melik-Shah and Yaqub. In the end, Yaqub was tasked with stopping Tughrul's rebellion. After this, Melik-Shah left Uzgend and returned to Khorasan. Not long after, he allowed Ahmad Khan to return to his homeland, probably because he was related to Terken Hatun, or thought he could restore order. Ahmad Khan was allowed to rule again on the condition that he stayed loyal to Melik-Shah. Lastly, about religion. Imam Jafar al-Sadiq, the sixth Imam from the family of Ali, removed his oldest son Ismail from being heir because he drank wine. He named another son, Musa, as his successor. This caused a big split among the Shia. One group supported Ismail and did not accept Musa or the imams after him. This was how a new group began, later known as the Batinis or Ismailis in Islamic history. In the beginning, the Batini movement was carried out secretly by its leaders and missionaries called da'is. But everything changed with Hassan Sabbah. He was very smart and had strong leadership skills. He created a powerful and organized group. Instead of staying secret, he used fearless assassins, fedayeen, to spread fear and control people's beliefs and thoughts. In 1071, Abdul Malik bin Attash, the head Ismaili missionary in Iraq, went to Ray and noticed Hassan Sabbah's talents. He told Hassan to organize the Ismaili group and travel to Egypt to meet the Fatimid Caliph. Around this time, Shia Muslims in Ray were under tight control, so Hassan decided to leave for Egypt in 1077. After traveling through Iran, Iraq, and Syria, he reached Cairo in 1079. The Fatimid Caliph al-Mustansir welcomed him and asked him to invite people to follow him as the true leader. Later, a fight over succession broke out. Al-Mustansir had first chosen his son Nizar to be the next caliph, but later changed it to his other son Ahmad. Hassan Sabbah supported Nizar, but the military leader Badr al-Jamali supported Ahmad. Fearing for his life, Hassan left Egypt in 1081 and returned to Isfahan. He secretly moved around regions like Kerman and Yazd, spreading support for Nizar. Then, in mountain areas like Tabaristan, Kuhistan, and Gurgan, where many Shia lived, he gathered more followers. He stayed in Damaghan for 3 years and sent out missionaries. Some stories say his followers used hashish to enter a trance-like state, imagining paradise and becoming brave enough to face death. Hassan Sabbah started a new version of the movement called the New Call. One main rule was, killing enemies of the sect was a religious duty. Because of this, the Seljuk government quickly saw them as a threat. Vizier Nizam al-Mulk ordered the governor of Ray, Abu Muslim, to stop Hassan Sabbah. When security became tight in Ray, Hassan didn't dare go there. He then searched for a safe place and decided to take over Alamut Castle, located in the Rudbar Valley near Qazvin. The castle was high up in the mountains and hard to reach, and was ruled at the time by a man named Mehdi, who supported Sultan Melikshah. In 1090, Hassan secretly entered the castle and slowly won the support of some locals. Once safe, he removed Mehdi from the castle. Hassan told his supporter, Muzaffar Mustafi, the governor of Girdku and Damaghan, to pay 3,000 dinars to Mehdi as compensation. Then, he began capturing areas around Alamut and killed government officials who resisted him. He even forced some people to join by using violence. Wherever possible, he built new castles too. The historian Ibn al-Athir wrote that people started learning about this group, called the Batinis or Ismailis, during Melikshah's reign. In one case, 18 Batinis joined a holiday prayer in Sudra, but they were arrested and questioned. Later, they were released. This was the first known public activity by the Batinis. After that, they invited a muezzin in Isfahan to join them. When he refused, they feared he would report them, so they killed him. This was the first person the Batinis murdered. When Nizam al-Mulk heard this, he ordered the murderers to be caught. A carpenter named Tahir was found guilty and executed. He was also the first Batini to be killed by the state. At that time, Alamut and its surroundings had been given to a Seljuk official named Yoruntash. Yoruntash attacked Alamut often, killing Batinis and stealing their property. Because of this pressure, food ran out inside the castle, and the people there wanted to leave. But Hassan Sabah told them, "The Fatimid Caliph Mustansir has ordered us to stay and promised a great victory soon." This lie gave the people hope, and they stayed. Because of this, the castle was later called the City of Success, Baldat al-Iqbal. When Yorantash suddenly died in 1091, the attacks on Alamut stopped. Hassan used his death in his propaganda to gain more followers. After this, Hassan sent his missionary Hussein Kaini to Kuhistan. Hussein succeeded in gaining new supporters and settled there. Hassan then appointed a deputy governor. In time, the Batinis in Kuhistan did the same as in Alamut. They invited people to join them, captured castles, and tried to take control of the area. When it became clear that the Batinis were harming Muslim communities, Sultan Melikshah ordered Emir Arslantash to destroy Hassan Sabah and his followers. In July 1092, Arslantash besieged Alamut. At that time, Hassan only had about 60 to 70 people and very little food. Still, they resisted. One of Hassan's men, Dedar Abu Ali, had been working in Ardistan and later moved to Qazvin, where he gained followers. When Hassan was in trouble, he asked for help. Abu Ali collected around 300 fighters with weapons and sent them to Alamut. They made it to the castle. Now stronger, the Batinis attacked the Seljuk army with help from local Rudbar people in October 1092. The Seljuks were surprised and defeated. They had to retreat. When Sultan Melikshah sent Arslantash to attack Alamut, he also ordered Kızıl Sara to go with the soldiers of Khorasan to fight the Batinis in Kuhistan. Kızıl Sara besieged the Batinis at Dera Castle in Sistan, but when news came that Sultan Melikshah had died, he ended the siege and returned. The army scattered. Melikshah had tried many ways to destroy the Batinis, but because he died early, he couldn't finish his plans. After his death, the efforts to stop the Batinis weakened, and the problems they caused grew bigger. After Melikshah left northern Syria, his brother Tutush captured the cities of Sidon and Beirut from the Fatimids. This meant most coastal cities in Syria and Palestine came under Seljuk rule. Later, the Seljuk governor of Aleppo, Aksungur, attacked Shazar, which was controlled by the Munkizi family. The reason was a conflict between the people of Latmin and the Munkizi emir Nasr bin Ali. Aksungur attacked the area and besieged the castle. Nasr gave in after promising to make peace with the Latmin people. 1 year later, Aksungur took Berzuye Castle from the Armenians, then ordered it destroyed 9 months later. At this time, the Fatimid state, with strong support from Badr al-Jamali, wanted to take back Palestine and Syria. Badr sent a large army led by Nasir al-Dawla Juwayshi. The Fatimid army quickly besieged Tyre, an important port on the Mediterranean. After the local ruler Qadi Ayn al-Dawla died, his children couldn't resist and surrendered. The Fatimids then captured Sidon, Beirut, Acre, and Jubail. They even marched toward Baalbek. The ruler of Baalbek and Homs, Halaf bin Mulaib, submitted to Juwayshi and began reading the Friday sermon in the Fatimid caliph's name. Their final goal was Damascus, the capital of the Seljuk territory in Syria. They besieged it, but failed. Still, the campaign was seen as a success, and the Fatimid army returned to Egypt. Losing these cities worried Tutush, so he sent messengers to Sultan Melikshah, asking for help. Melikshah ordered Aksungur, Bozan, and Yagisiyan to help Tutush. Their first target was Homs, ruled by Halaf bin Mulaib, who had supported the Fatimids and had been robbing travelers. Bin Mulaib couldn't resist the large Seljuk army. He asked for peace for himself, his family, and his wealth. The Seljuk leaders accepted, and Homs was handed over. As ordered by Melikshah, Homs was given to Tutush. Then, Tutush marched to Irka, northeast of Tripoli, and took the Irka castle, also controlled by bin Mulayb. Meanwhile, Aksungur captured Afamia castle and gave it to Nasser, the Munkazi emir of Shazar. After taking Irka, Tutush and the other Seljuk leaders besieged Tripoli, ruled by Qadi Abul Hasan bin Ammar. Seeing he couldn't hold the city, bin Ammar tried several tricks to escape defeat. First, he offered gifts and promises of money to Tutush's commanders, but it didn't work. Then, he tried to win over Zarinkamar, the vizier of Aksungur, by giving him gifts and money. He also sent 30,000 gold coins and gifts to Aksungur himself. He even showed Melikshah's official letters that said Tripoli should stay under his control. This was enough for Aksungur to stop supporting Tutush. He said, "I won't fight someone who has the Sultan's orders." Tutush was angry and asked, "Aren't you under my command?" Aksungur replied, "I obey you unless you go against the great Sultan." Because of this argument, Aksungur left the siege and returned to Aleppo. Bozan also went back to Urfa, leaving Tutush alone in front of Tripoli. Since his army was too small, Tutush had to give up the siege and return to Damascus. Tutush sent one of his sons to complain about Aksungur's behavior to Melikshah, but the Sultan didn't care and sent the boy back. So the Fatimids kept control of the coastal cities in Palestine and Syria. Even so, during Melikshah's second visit to Baghdad, he ordered Bozan and Aksungur to serve Tutush again and help conquer the coastal cities of Syria. He also wanted them to march on Egypt. This shows that Melikshah was seriously planning a military campaign against the Fatimids. Meanwhile, the Abbasid Caliph al-Muqtadi was happy with his vizier Abu Shuja, but removed him for a few reasons. One reason was that Nizam al-Mulk, the Seljuk vizier, wanted his own son to become vizier to the caliph, so he complained about Abu Shuja to the caliph. Another reason was related to a celebration. When Melikshah conquered Samarkand, a messenger came to Baghdad with the news. The caliph was happy and gave gifts, held a parade, and decorated the city. But Abu Shuja said, "Why are we celebrating? This is not a big deal. Samarkand is already a Muslim city." These words were reported to the Sultan, who became angry and asked the caliph to remove Abu Shuja from his job. One reason Vizier Abu Shuja was removed from office was his harsh treatment of non-Muslims. He forced them to pay the jizya tax and wear special clothing. Because of this pressure, many Jews converted to Islam. However, these actions caused anger among non-Muslim communities. They complained to Jawharayin, the police chief of Baghdad. He went to Isfahan and told Sultan Melikshah about the problem. The Sultan and Nizam al-Mulk wanted Abu Shuja removed, and the caliph dismissed him in October 1091. Nizam al-Mulk even thought it was dangerous for him to stay in Baghdad, so Abu Shuja was sent away from the city. At first, Abu Sa'd bin Musala became acting vizier. Then, in January 1092, the ruler of Diyarbakir, Amid al-Dawla bin Fakhr al-Dawla Juhair, was made the new vizier of the caliph. In autumn 1091, Sultan Melikshah visited Baghdad for the second time with his vizier Nizam al-Mulk. When they crossed the border, Abu Sa'd bin Musala came to greet them. Because the Sultan was coming, many Seljuk rulers were invited to Baghdad. Tutush, Aksungur of Aleppo, Bozan of Urfa, Emir Chubuk, and others. The city celebrated with big festivals. One night called the River Fleet Night was especially memorable. The Tigris River was lit with lanterns and candles, and fires were lit along the banks. It was so bright it looked like day. The celebrations lasted all night. Nizam al-Mulk and other nobles attended, and many poets wrote poems about it. While in Baghdad, the Sultan gave Jawharayin and Emir Chubuk the task of conquering Hijaz and Yemen. He also ordered the building of a new mosque called Sultan Mosque, and construction began in February-March 1092. The direction of prayer was decided by the Sultan's astrologer Bahram and a team of scientists. The chief judge Abu Bakr Shami was put in charge of the construction. The Sultan also ordered shops to be built around the mosque. Nizam al-Mulk, Taj al-Mulk, and other officials started building homes in Baghdad for their visits. While the Sultan was in Baghdad, a big earthquake happened on November 26, 1091 in Syria and nearby areas. Many houses in Antioch were destroyed, and people were trapped under the rubble. 90 towers on Antioch's city walls fell. The Sultan ordered them to be rebuilt. Melik-Shah left Baghdad on April 25, 1092, and returned to Isfahan. In 1068, the Sharif of Mecca, Muhammad bin Abu Hashim, began reading the khutbah in the name of the Abbasid Caliph al-Qaim and Sultan Alp Arslan. After Melik-Shah became Sultan, he wanted good relations with the Sharif, so he sent Salar of Khorasan to Mecca. Salar brought with him a large Kaaba cover made of yellow silk and embroidered with Mahmud of Ghazna's name. It had been kept by Abul Qasim Dihkani, and the Kaaba was covered with it for the first time. However, after Caliph al-Qaim died in 1073, the Fatimid Caliph al-Mustansir tried to regain influence in Mecca. The sermon was changed and read in the Fatimid Caliph's name. But Melik-Shah didn't accept this. He sent Salar of Khorasan back to Mecca, who made a deal with the Sharif so that the sermon was once again read in the names of Caliph al-Muqtadi and Sultan Melik-Shah. The Sharif of Mecca even wanted to marry Melik-Shah's sister. At that time, the Fatimids were trying to keep their influence in the Hijaz region, while Atsiz had military success and had marched close to Cairo. Between 1076 and 1077, the emir of Medina was Hussein bin Muhanna, who was loyal to the Seljuks. But the Fatimids sent Muhi al-Alawi, who took control of Medina. The people supported him because Hussein was taking too much money from the pilgrims. Hussein was removed and went to Melik-Shah. Then the sermon in Medina was again read in the name of the Fatimid Caliph. But 2 to 3 years later, around 1079 to 1080, the Fatimid name was removed from the sermons in Mecca and Medina, and the sermons were once again read in the name of the Abbasid Caliph al-Muqtadi and Sultan Melik-Shah. This change was due to Seljuk control in the southeast, then in Aleppo, and Melik-Shah's visit to Baghdad. This shows that control of the holy cities and the sermons depended on political power. Melik-Shah also ordered Jawharayan to secure control over Hijaz and Yemen. The Seljuk army for the region was led by a Turkmen commander named Turshak, and his assistant was Yarankush. Turshak went to Hijaz, but treated people badly. He was reported to the Sharif of Mecca, Abu Hashim. Then he moved south toward Yemen, but died of smallpox on the 7th day. Yarankush took over and continued the campaign. The Seljuk forces captured Aden and nearby areas, adding them to the Seljuk Empire in 1092. Nizam al-Mulk, the Seljuk vizier, was the most powerful man after the Sultan. He made sure no one could challenge his power. He kept control through 20,000 private soldiers and many sons he had placed in important cities. Because of this, many people in the government didn't like him. Still, Sultan Melik-Shah appreciated Nizam al-Mulk for helping him become Sultan and for managing the empire well. He gave him the title Atabeg, and later even called him father to show respect. However, the behavior of Nizam al-Mulk's sons and followers, who acted boldly and didn't respect other officials, and even ignored the Sultan at times, began to bother Melik-Shah. Enemies of Nizam al-Mulk used this situation to turn the Sultan against him. According to historical sources, one event that caused tension between Sultan Melik Shah and his vizier Nizam al-Mulk was this. A very wealthy Jewish man named Ibn Alan was close to Nizam al-Mulk. Thanks to this, he became the tax collector of Basra, paying 100,000 gold coins a year. His influence became so strong that when his wife died, nearly everyone in Basra attended the funeral, except the judge. During December 1079, January 1080, Sultan Melik Shah went hunting in Khuzestan and stayed in Avaz. With him were Baghdad's police chief Jawharayan and Humartakin. These two men encouraged the Sultan to kill Ibn Alan. Melik Shah was upset that so many Muslims had attended a Jew's funeral and ordered Ibn Alan's death. He was killed immediately. This deeply upset Nizam al-Mulk. He stayed at home for 3 days and showed clearly that he was offended. Later, some friends advised him to end the conflict and visit the Sultan. Nizam agreed. He held a big feast and gave gifts to the Sultan. But Melik Shah criticized him for not coming for 3 days. Nizam apologized. In the end, Basra was given to Humartakin to govern, in exchange for 100,000 gold coins and 100 horses per year. One of Nizam al-Mulk's rivals was Abul Mahasin, son of the head of the Tugra office Kemal al-Dawla Abu Riza, who also worked in the royal court. Sultan Melik Shah liked him and made him a close assistant. Abul Mahasin was also Nizam al-Mulk's son-in-law, but he was jealous of his power and often complained about him to the Sultan. One day, Abul Mahasin told the Sultan, "Give me Nizam al-Mulk and his men, and I will pay you 1 million gold coins. They are taking public money and land for themselves." When Nizam al-Mulk heard this, he organized a large feast with thousands of Turkish soldiers and invited the Sultan. During the event, Nizam said, "I have served you, your father and grandfather. I did take some wealth, but I used it to feed your servants, support charities and endowments. Here is all I own. You may take it. All I need is a cloak and a small place to live." Melik Shah was moved by these words. He ordered that Abul Mahasin be blinded and sent to Saveh Castle. His father, Kemal al-Dawla, went to Nizam's house and begged for his life, offering 300,000 gold coins from the treasury. He was saved, but removed from his position. Nizam al-Mulk's son, Muayyid al-Mulk, became the new head of the Tugra office. This was a major victory for Nizam al-Mulk over his enemies. Emir Humartakin's vizier, Amid al-Dawla bin Bahmanyar, was also a skilled official and joined the Sultan's service. He was friends with Abul Mahasin, and together they opposed Nizam al-Mulk. Bin Bahmanyar also complained to the Sultan, saying, "Nizam is wasting money." Some even said the vizier position would be given to Bin Bahmanyar. In the Sultan's palace, there was a jester named Jafarak, who often mocked Nizam al-Mulk in front of the Sultan. When Nizam's son and governor of Balkh, Jamal al-Mulk, heard about this, he came to Isfahan. His brothers Muayyid al-Mulk and Fakhr al-Mulk welcomed him. But Jamal al-Mulk was angry with them for allowing Jafarak to make jokes about their father. When he entered the Sultan's presence and saw Jafarak making fun of Nizam, he shouted, "How can someone like you speak in front of the Sultan?" He immediately ordered that Jafarak be arrested and have his tongue cut out from the back of his neck. The sentence was carried out. Jamal al-Mulk didn't stop there. He also captured Bin Bahmanyar and blinded him. But these punishments, done without permission, made the Sultan very angry. Although Melik Shah stayed silent at first, he later traveled to Nishapur with Nizam and Jamal al-Mulk. During the journey, the Sultan decided to get rid of him. On the way back to Isfahan, Melik Shah called the governor of Khorasan and asked, "Which is more valuable, "Your head or Jamal al-Mulk's?" The man replied, "My head, of course." Then the Sultan said, "If you don't kill him, I'll have you killed." After leaving the Sultan, the governor secretly spoke with Jamal al-Mulk's servant and said, "The Sultan wants him dead. It's better if you kill him yourself." The servant, who was not very bright, believed this and poisoned his master's sherbet. As soon as Jamal al-Mulk drank it, he died. When the Sultan heard of his death, he left Nishapur and told Nizam al-Mulk that his son had died. He offered condolences, saying, "I am like your son too. You are someone who shows patience and seeks God's reward." So, while Jamal al-Mulk paid for his actions with his life, the event also caused more tension between the Sultan and his vizier. Another person who was jealous of Nizam al-Mulk was Abul Ghanaim Taj al-Mulk. He had first worked under the Serhenk Savtekin, who spoke well of him in front of the Sultan. Melik Shah then accepted Taj al-Mulk into his service and gave him several important positions, including vizier to the royal sons, manager of the harem, and head of the Tugra office. Over time, Taj al-Mulk began to get closer to Sultan Melik Shah. The Sultan had started to lose patience with Nizam al-Mulk, his old vizier. But Taj al-Mulk acted carefully. He continued to praise Nizam in public, even while trying to replace him. He had learned from the mistakes of others, like Ibn Bahmanyar and Abul Mahasin. Taj al-Mulk also tried to win over members of the royal council. He worked together with Majd al-Mulk, in charge of finance, and Sadid al-Mulk, in charge of the military, both of whom had started to oppose Nizam al-Mulk. Taj al-Mulk told the Sultan, "Every year, Nizam al-Mulk gives 300,000 gold coins to religious scholars, Sufis, and Quran readers. If this money were used to raise an army, even the walls of Constantinople could have been conquered." When Melik Shah heard this, he called Nizam al-Mulk and asked about the claim. Nizam replied, "O ruler of the world, I am an old man. If I were sold in the market, I would not be worth more than 3 gold coins. You would not be worth more than 100. God has given us blessings that no one else has. If we give 300,000 gold coins each year to those who spread God's religion and recite His holy book, is that too much? You spend twice as much on soldiers every year, but the strongest of them can shoot an arrow only a mile. Their swords only kill nearby enemies. But my army, made of prayers, sends words to heaven like arrows. Nothing can stop them from reaching God." Melik Shah was moved to tears. He said, "You may increase the number of these soldiers, prayers, as much as you like. Take as much money as you need. The wealth of the world is yours." One of those who opposed Nizam al-Mulk was Queen Turkan Khatun, the Sultan's wife. The reason was the issue of who would become crown prince. Melik Shah's sons, Ahmad and Dawood, whom he loved deeply, had died. There were now 2 candidates, Berkyaruk, son of Zubaydah Khatun, who was older and supported by Nizam al-Mulk. Mahmud, Turkan Khatun's son. Turkan Khatun tried everything to make her son the heir. Taj al-Mulk supported her, hoping to become vizier himself. Together, they started turning the Sultan against Nizam. Turkan Khatun told the Sultan that Nizam al-Mulk gave important state jobs to his sons, sons-in-law, and relatives. She said these men didn't follow orders and acted like little kings. Nizam al-Mulk, now old and tired, didn't respond to these attacks. But something happened that made things worse for him. He had appointed his son, Shams al-Mulk Osman, as governor of Merv. Meanwhile, the Sultan had appointed a military officer named Khodan to the same city. A dispute broke out between Osman and Khodan. Relying on his father's power, Osman arrested Khodan, but later released him. Khodan complained to the Sultan. Malik Shah immediately sent a harsh letter to Nizam al-Mulk through Taj al-Mulk and other officials. It said, "If you are my partner in ruling, then rules must be followed. But if you are my servant, you must obey orders. Your sons rule provinces as if they are kings. They interfere in state matters. If I want, I can take away your vizier's pen and turban." He sent this message with a trusted group, including his favorite commander, Yelberdi, telling him secretly, "Report back to me everything they say. Don't hide anything." When Nizam received the letter, he stayed calm and replied, "If the Sultan does not know I helped build this empire, now he should. I managed everything after your father's death, punished rebels, and brought peace. Back then, you supported me. Now that everything is stable, you believe lies about me. Tell the Sultan, his crown exists because of this pen. If I close this pen, the crown will fall. If he wants to change things, he should first think about the result." After the delegation left, they decided not to tell the Sultan what Nizam really said. They told him that Nizam had apologized and was ready to obey. But Yelberdi reported the truth. Malik Shah became even angrier. The next day, when the others told him Nizam had submitted, he replied that he already knew the real story. Still, remembering Nizam's long service, he decided to forgive him. But things were never the same. He no longer trusted him fully. According to some sources, secret measures were taken against Nizam al-Mulk. In October 1192, Sultan Malik Shah decided to go to Baghdad for the third time. With him were Turkan Khatun, Nizam al-Mulk, and Taj al-Mulk. They stopped at a place called Sihna, near Nihavand. One night after breaking his fast, Nizam al-Mulk was returning to his tent. A man dressed as a Sufi, named Abu Tahir, came up and handed him a letter. As Nizam read it, the man stabbed him in the chest with a knife. He tried to escape, but tripped over a tent rope and was caught and killed immediately. Nizam al-Mulk died shortly after being stabbed on October 14, 1092, at the age of 74. He had served the Seljuks for many years. His funeral was held in Isfahan, and he was buried in the tomb he had built, known as Tomb of Nizam. Nizam al-Mulk had fought the Batinis strongly and constantly tried to eliminate them. Because of this pressure, Hassan Saba planned the assassination. This event is considered the first major assassination by the Batinis in history. His death caused great sadness in the Muslim world, and many poets wrote poems mourning him. After his death, Sultan Malik Shah appointed Taj al-Mulk Abul Ghanaim as the new Seljuk vizier. Nizam al-Mulk was known for being a wise, religious, generous, fair, calm, and forgiving man. He didn't speak much, but did a lot. His meetings were always filled with Quran readers, scholars, and respected religious figures. By his command, schools were built in many cities like Baghdad, Isfahan, Nishapur, Balkh, Herat, Basra, Merv, and Amul, with permission from Seljuk rulers and funded by the treasury. In his youth, he studied Islamic law and learned many hadiths, sayings of the Prophet. He often had hadiths written down in cities like Baghdad and Khorasan. He showed great respect to scholars and did not like being praised too much. One day, when two scholars, Abul Qasim Kushairi and Imam Abul Ma'ali Juwaini, visited him, he stood up to greet them. But when Abu Ali Farmadi visited, he gave his own seat to him and sat on the ground. When asked why, he said, "Kushairi, and people like him praise me with words I don't deserve. It makes me proud. But Farmadi tells me my mistakes and faults. That keeps me humble and helps me improve." He also often invited poor people to eat with him and treated them with kindness. One story tells, one night he was eating with his brother and a state official. A poor man with a missing hand sat nearby. The official didn't want to sit next to him. Nizam al-Mulk noticed this, asked the official to move, and ate with the poor man instead. Another story says, a poor man once came to visit Nizam and sat outside with a large jar. When Nizam returned from seeing the Sultan, the man said, "I heard you love the poor. I won't believe it unless you fill my jar with gold." Nizam gave him a bag of gold, but the man said it wasn't enough. Then Nizam ordered all the gold from the treasury to be put in the jar. Even that didn't fill it. He then asked his family to give their jewelry. Finally, the jar was full. But the poor man couldn't lift it. Nizam told his men to carry it to the man's home. The man then shouted, "I was only testing you. I don't need this much gold." He disappeared, and Nizam later donated all the gold to charity. One of Nizam al-Mulk's most famous works is the Siyasatnama. It gave advice to rulers and officials about justice and good governance. In 1077 to 1078, Sultan Melik Shah asked his officials to write such a book. Nizam's book was chosen and became a major guide for future statesmen. After Caliph al-Muqtadi married Sultan Melik Shah's daughter, Memerek Khatun, a son was born. Baghdad was decorated for the occasion, and gold and silver were thrown into the streets. The caliph named the boy Jafar and gave him the title Abul Fadl. But later, Memerek told her father that the caliph was ignoring her. Melik Shah ordered her to return home. The caliph agreed. Emir Bozan and Humartikan Savab went to Baghdad and brought Memerek and her son to Isfahan, May-June 1089. Memerek died shortly after, in January 1090. Melik Shah wanted his grandson Jafar to become heir to the throne and future caliph. He gave him the title Commander of the Faithful and ordered his name to be mentioned in Friday sermons after the caliphs. But Caliph al-Muqtadi refused. Some sources say that Melik Shah even thought about removing the caliph and choosing a new one, but Nizam al-Mulk strongly opposed this idea. Later, Melik Shah began his third journey to Baghdad. After Nizam al-Mulk was assassinated near Nihavand, Melik Shah continued to Baghdad and arrived on October 28, 1092. He was welcomed by Amid al-Dawla bin Juhair, the caliph's vizier. Melik Shah also ordered that Taj al-Mulk be officially appointed as Seljuk vizier. Official documents were prepared, and Taj al-Mulk took the vizier's seat. Nizam al-Mulk was a balancing figure between the Sultan and the Caliph. But after his assassination, that balance was lost in favor of the Sultan. Melik Shah was angry that his grandson Abul Fazl Jafar's name wasn't mentioned in the Friday sermon in Baghdad. He sent a message to the Caliph demanding he leave Baghdad within 24 hours and choose to live either in Hijaz or Damascus. The Caliph asked for more time. With Taj al-Mulk's help, the Sultan allowed him to stay for 10 more days. However, before this period ended, the Sultan died, so the Caliph remained in Baghdad. After giving the Caliph this order, Melik Shah went hunting. He became ill during the trip and died on November 19, 1092. According to some sources, he was poisoned. A servant named Herdik had smeared poison on a small ear-cleaning tool. After the Sultan used it, he fell sick and died within days. Those suspected in the poisoning included Turkan Khatun, who wanted her son Mahmud on the throne, as well as Caliph al-Muqtadi and Nizam al-Mulk's supporters. But Turkan Khatun is considered the main suspect. She kept the Sultan's death secret, removed the body at night with 2 men, and no funeral prayer was held. As per Turkic tradition, no mourning was declared, and the horses' tails were not cut. The Sultan's body was later taken to Isfahan and buried in the tomb at his own madrasa. Melik Shah was known to be one of the most handsome and noble-looking men of his time. He had broad shoulders, was of medium height, slightly chubby, with a round beard. He was skilled with all weapons, especially the bow and spear, and his arrows always hit the target. He was also talented in horse riding, polo, and kura. He loved hunting. Once, after killing 10,000 animals, he ordered 10,000 gold coins to be given as charity, saying he didn't want to kill animals without purpose. From then on, he gave charity equal to the number of animals he hunted. He had a minaret built in Subi called Minarat al-Qurun and built another similar one in Transoxiana. Both Muslim and Christian historians praised Meliksha for his rule. His time as ruler was full of peace, safety, and justice. People feared him because he punished oppressors and gave justice to the oppressed. Anyone who was wronged could directly bring their complaint to the Sultan. He visited Baghdad 3 times. The people feared prices would rise and soldiers would cause harm, but none of that happened. In fact, people freely traded with the Seljuk soldiers. Meliksha also removed taxes on trade goods and pilgrims traveling to Mecca. Because of this, his reign was seen as a pearl on a necklace, and he was known as the Just Sultan. Many stories were told about his justice. One day near Wasit in Iraq, 2 brothers known as the Sons of Ghazali came to him and said, "Governor Humartikan took 1.6 million gold coins from us and broke 2 of our brothers' teeth." They showed their broken teeth and asked for justice. Meliksha immediately got off his horse and said, "Each of you hold one of my arms and take me to Nizam al-Mulk." They hesitated, but the Sultan insisted. When Nizam heard about this, he rushed out of his tent and asked, "O ruler of the world, what made you act like this?" Meliksha replied, "What will I do when God asks me about people's rights on Judgment Day? I trust you to handle these matters. If people are tortured or wronged, you are responsible. Think of me and yourself." Nizam al-Mulk ordered Humartekin to be removed from his position. The gold returned, and a legal investigation into the broken teeth. He also gave 100 gold coins to the complainants. They left satisfied. Another story. Meliksha once met a crying villager while out hunting. He asked why he was crying. The man, thinking he was just a soldier, said, "I had a load of melons to sell to the army, but 3 soldiers took them by force without paying." Meliksha said, "There is a red tent in the army. Wait there until I return." The man went to the red tent and waited. After returning, the Sultan asked his servant for melons. The servant brought one, saying he got it from a certain officer's tent. Meliksha asked who took the melons. The officer said his soldiers had brought them. But when he checked, the soldiers had run away. The Sultan turned to the villager and said, "This officer was trained by my father. He is now your slave. If you don't accept him, I will execute him." The villager took the officer by the hand. On the way, the officer gave him 300 gold coins to buy his freedom. Later, the villager returned to the Sultan and said he had accepted the money. Meliksha asked, "Are you happy now?" The man said yes. Meliksha said, "Then take your money and go. Pray for us." Meliksha also showed tolerance to non-Muslims, especially Armenians and Syriacs, and is praised in their sources. The Armenian historian Matthew of Edessa said, "The death of the Sultan, the father of all people, kind and merciful to everyone, brought great mourning to the whole world." When he died, Meliksha left behind a vast empire stretching from the Chinese border to the Bosphorus, and from the Caucasus to Yemen and Aden. Like his father, he died young, and his early death